I want to ask about the wrenches.
The Earth First logo, they're a group that would go out in the woods and try and stop logging or mining companies from clear cutting or strip mining or doing things that were destructive towards the natural world and disrupting wildlife's habitats. So these guys were going out there and sabotaging machinery and preventing roads from being put into wilderness areas. Like they were going all out. And their logo was a stone hammer and a wrench.
And Judge already took hammers,
And Judge already took the hammers. I was like, we need something. And I had these radical, we all did. We had these radical, which we still do, animal rights, animal liberation views. I was like, how about a wrench to realign and a monkey wrench to sabotage? We'll put them together and overlay them.
Steven, clip it.
Hello, welcome. It's HardLore time. How are you, Bo?
I'm doing so well, Colin. How are you?
Exquisite, because frankly, it's a huge week on the show.
It really is.
It's a long time coming. Some would say it's 30 years coming, 31. Who's counting? We've got a very special guest today.
That's right.
A man who's responsible for me being straight edge, many being straight edge, many being vegan. One of the all-time great straight edge frontmen, certainly one of the all-time great vegan straight edge frontmen. The trailblazing, groundbreaking frontman of Earth Crisis, Mr. Karl Buechner. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you, gentlemen?
Fantastic.
Doing really good. Thank you for coming back. We had a little mini with you quite some time ago, and I feel like we were just scratching the surface. We were barely getting in there.
That was one of our first interviews ever. One of our first fest interviews ever.
Yeah.
You, we had spoken briefly a few times before then.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in that moment you were kind of approaching it like, what the hell am I getting myself into? Have you watched that back since?
The Furnace Fest?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We're just kind of talking at you for 15 minutes, which is great.
We're just like, and another thing, like the whole time.
So I'm excited to, have you talk today and learn some things. You've been vegan for so long, you've been straight edge for so long, you've been doing band stuff for so long, but now I have just learned you are an author.
I am an author, yes.
How does that happen? How did that come to be, I should say?
Yeah.
Tell me about the Unraveling the Council of Crows.
Okay, years ago, I wrote a short story about animals that had evolved after being experimented on in a vivisectionist laboratory.
Whoa.
And they live in the future, and the world is very different. Not to give everything away, but in the story, they're created by a laboratory that works for a mercenary army, like let's say Blackwater or Triple Canopy, something like that, which are real. And the Navy has used dolphins, the military has used dogs. Yeah. So all those kinds of things are real. And
this is a fantastical true story in some way.
Right.
Well, it has elements of reality embedded into the plot. Sure. But it's about the future, and it's kind of a way for us to look at how bizarre some of the warlike behavior is when it's conducted by these animals, and then kind of look at the mirror image of it, and it's a reflection of how humans have this cutthroat, competitive, conquerous nature.
Wow.
Incredible.
Yeah. So
I said to Colin that the title and subtitle is like, it sounds like an Earth Crisis record. It's
a carryover of the, a lot of the animal rights and environmental, anti-state sponsored warfare ideas that Earth Crisis has always been about.
Wow. I just got chills. He just chilled me up.
Yeah, it's a science fiction story.
Yeah.
It's a science fiction story.
Well, I mean, we know that there's no man more qualified to tell a tale about animals destroying the machines. So it's cool that young readers will now become familiar with this story and then go back and hear what brought you there over time.
That's right. And Earth Crisis has done something similar in the past. We did a comic book companion to the Salvation of Innocence record years ago.
Whoa.
I don't know if you guys saw that. I'll definitely mail you guys a couple copies, but
I would love that.
This is a whole world that we took a short story that I wrote, and my pals Jeremy and Keith are both incredible writers. And over the years, we built it into a world. And there's 3 books, and it debuts on Earth Day. It's being released, so we're getting close.
What's the date of Earth Day?
I think it's towards the end of the month.
22nd? April 22nd, I believe, or something like that.
You know what? Keith might have wrote it down.
Stephen will insert it here. I'll tell you what.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Yes, Stephen will save the day.
You can pre-order that now. You can pick it up at Barnes & Noble. I'm telling you, this thing is real.
Amazon, you can do the pre-orders for sure. Yeah, even now.
I'm going to go and get mine from my local book seller. And
you should all do the same.
I really look forward to that.
So, Karl.
Yes.
In 2025 now, how many years now does this mark as straight edge and vegan for you?
I became straight edge, I think, in 86. I was 16. But I had never really wanted to experiment with drugs or alcohol or smoking or anything like that. I saw some pretty bad examples within my own family as to what types of problems those things would lead to. So I really shied away from it.
Yeah.
And when I discovered straight edge through the bands of the time, I was like, this is perfect. This fits incredibly well with the views I already have. So
the bands at the time being Minor Threat, SSD, Youth of Today, etc. Any others?
Yeah. DYS, absolutely. Uniform Choice. And I probably had the greatest high school graduation weekend of anybody ever in 89. We graduated from high school on Friday. That night, we saw Uniform Choice at a club that's now gone called the Elks Lodge in Syracuse. And then we traveled to Albany and saw Token Entry on what I think was the Jaybird tour.
One weekend?
In one weekend, yeah.
Oh, man.
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
And used to have it good.
Let me ask you something. Karl, when you were that young, and maybe you were too young to really scrutinize it this way, but based on how I'm assuming you kind of evolved through straight edge and your opinions on it, specifically through Earth Crisis and Path, were you more into the SSDs and DYS that are a little more overtly and harder edge as opposed to Minor Threat and Uniform Choice that were kind of like, hey, kind of more like liberal about it? Like, did you see yourself aligning one way or the other, or was that not even a thought yet?
Loved it all. I loved it all, and I took it very seriously. About a year later, I was very, very much, my buddy JT and I were very into skateboarding. I had like a half pipe in my backyard that we made out of lumber we stole from a construction site. And we were just really focused on being the best skateboarders we could. And I think I might have been 18, but I was with my girlfriend and we were sitting at a stoplight. The story's going someplace.
Okay.
And I was like, it was at night. I was like, that guy is going to hit us. She was sitting there. She's like, what guy? I'm like, that car's speeding towards us. That guy's going to hit us. I go back up or pull forward. And she's like, what? Bam. This drunk driver hit us. The car spun around. He got out. He was crying. Like something horrible must have happened to him. And he picked a brick up off of a wall, like a little flagstone, and broke his window because I think he had locked himself out and he sped off.
Oh.
And we were sitting there stunned, and like my knee got hit against the door, and it was wild. Like she was okay, but my knee was hurt. Like we were rattled, and it just, that experience, was very nerve-wracking, and it was kind of a painful recovery. And I think that's the point where I started to be like, drugs and alcohol can be very dangerous for everyone, not just the person that's like using them for escapism or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that moment would kind of go on to define your entire life in many ways.
It did. And then, just seeing relatives pass away from problems that were direct results of addiction, or and then after that, people are influenced by things in good ways and bad ways. And right now, the three of us are talking about the good influences. Totally. There's also a lot of negative influences out there. Like a lot of the harder hardcore kids figured out that they could sell drugs and make money. Mm-hmm. And some of my friends are going over to Europe, and they'd fill backpacks up with whatever they were smuggling, and they'd ride the trains around, and they'd come back with dough. And, and even just from simple stuff like weed, they were making like $300 in 2 days, which back then was a lot of money,
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't ever want to be a part of this. I'm going to make like a clear line of demarcation between those types of behaviors and myself.
And were you scrutinized at the time for not taking part in any of that?
Well, of course, people wanted me to do stuff because it was lucrative, and we were all insane hardcore skateboard dudes. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
And we were the only hardcore dudes at the time. And that's not to say everybody was involved in that, but like, factions were kind of splitting, and people were going one way or another. And I was starting to get more militant, and they were starting to get more, fast track to profit minded. Uh-huh. And the city was in a lot of trouble. We had at least 4 factories closed during that time, including Carrier, which was where they made all the air conditioners and things like that.
Can't lose that, man.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I know. Tragic. And like the street that ran directly up the middle of the city, the main like boulevard, like one by one, all those buildings started closing down, those offices, and getting boarded up. And people were leaving the city to go to like Tennessee or North Carolina for jobs. And in a place like Syracuse, like we're not in New York City. We're not one of the boroughs. We're north, for people that don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at a map of New York State and put a pin in the center, that's where we are. We're called Central New York. But the winters here are very severe. So as soon as these buildings were abandoned and windows got smashed out or boarded up, like in 3-4 years, because of the weather here, it started to look like the city was falling down.
Totally.
So the jobs were gone. Certain sections looked like a wreck. People were upset and angry. People were leaving. People saw their dads playing the game and losing, so they were trying to take shortcuts.
Well, yeah. What can I do to circumvent? What's the point? Yeah.
So you can empathize, but also not take part of it.
Yeah,
actively.
Exactly. Because I did not grow up in a hardcore scene. We had a hardcore scene flare up here in the very early 80s that I was a little too young to be a part of. I got to know those guys later. Some of those bands like Fast Furious Death and Catatonics, like they were legit good. Like I would definitely urge everyone to check out the Catatonics Hunted Down 7-inch. It's great.
Awesome.
So I mean, there was cool kids and there was good music being made, but like that hardcore scene, rose and fell pretty quickly, and then it kind of went back to like a punk rock scene where it was more like, drinking and drugs, and that's unfortunately the one I grew up in. I was always straight edge the whole time, but I was, me and JT and some of our other pals, we were the minority within the misfit. The misfit group.
So we're only a few years out from the creation of straight edge as a concept.
Yeah.
So did you witness it kind of evolve from a song to a movement? And how did that movement hit your circle? How did it become more than just a song?
Yeah, I did witness that, and it was thanks to my cousin. My cousin was a little bit older than me. He played bass in a band called Crucifixion of Christ. They never recorded, but he was a pretty severe guy during that era. He was kind of like the alpha wolf, I guess. So we were kind of following his lead on certain things.
Sure.
And in some ways we were being taught wrong, you know.
Sure.
But you know, he was always of that mindset, and later on he went into the military. But he was playing Motorhead and Angry Samoans and Black Flag and all that stuff for me, as well as some of the metal like Accept and Metallica, all that stuff. So I was getting it all at once.
Okay.
But when it came to the straight edge stuff, and when it came to all the music, like what I was gravitating to when I was younger was more of like the comedy oriented aspect of it. You know, like Black Flag TV Party.
Yeah.
You know, or Angry Samoans, They Saved Hitler's Cock. or the Meatmen, you know, to me, and I've said this in other interviews, but it's true. So it needs to be reiterated. Like I was there at first, you know, just like I was into skating for fun, I was into music for fun. You know, like all those bands were South Park or Family Guy or Simpsons before those things existed. It was like the most outrageous comedy you could get, you know?
Sure.
Wow.
But then after all these experiences that we just kind of went through the itemized list of, I was starting to realize that you kind of had to take things seriously if you wanted to stay up, you know?
Wow.
And boy, did you.
Yeah.
So in the skateboarding era, did you ever shred it up in any of the scan jams?
What we did was we would go to different competitions.
Ah.
And they would have street style contests at a shop on the boulevard called Wayne's Bike Shop. Okay. And what was cool was every time there was a contest, they would bring pros in to judge.
Wow.
They had Bill Danforth and from Alva, John Lucero.
Wow.
They had Jim Murphy. And those guys judged. And like, granted, I'd get third or fourth, but at least I placed.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good.
And I remember I won some wheels. I won Alva Speed Skins, and I saved them all these years.
Hell yeah. You still got them?
I still got them.
That's awesome.
Wow. That's incredible.
They're the only trophy I ever won.
So do you play bass? Or at least you did at some point.
I did,
You dabble with the bass at all today?
I haven't been writing recently because, you know, I'm doing vocals for 3 bands simultaneously. So I'm more focused on, well, you know, I have, and I play piano a little bit too here and there.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm primarily just focused on vocals and lyrics during this era.
Which is understandable, but I bring this up because you are not the original vocalist of Earth Crisis.
No, the original vocalist of Earth Crisis is the vocalist of Path of Resistance. It's DJ Rose, and he's a famous tattoo artist in Central New York. He built a shop called Halo. He's done very, very well.
I've been to Halo without realizing that connection.
Yeah.
But I've certainly been there, and it was like, oh, this is the Earth Crisis guys kind of thing, but I didn't know the exact connection.
That's right. Yeah.
Karl, I believe I read that he came up with the name for Earth Crisis.
He did, and I think he based it off of. I think he originally wanted to call it Youth Crisis, which would be a great name for somebody out there if it's not taken. You know.
Yeah.
No, he got it according, of course, to Wikipedia from a Steel Pulse record from the 80s.
Yes,
that sounds right.
I think we just went with the Steel Pulse song instead. I was like, "There's nothing wrong with just calling it Earth Crisis." And awesome. we actually have come out on stage to the song Earth Crisis.
Hell yeah,
that's
very
which is a reggae song, and reggae, and just so everybody knows, like now I think a lot of hardcore kids it's just the thrashy punk, it's just the different versions of hardcore and metal. Mm-hmm. But like back then, if you grew up in the early to mid 80s with this scene, you were going to see Fishbone and Bad Manners and Bim Scala Bim. You were probably also going to see, GBH and Circle Jerks and Black Flag. But then if you got the chance, you'd be at, later on, you'd be at Testament and Entombed.
Hell yeah.
You would see the punk and the skater kids at all the shows. So we would, meet these different tribes because the metalheads were the metalheads.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
They were. And the punk guys that were older than us, they were the punk guys.
But it's all the greater underground.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Which is where we thrive. We thrive, and that's what the show's all about, is bringing the whole underground together.
Exactly. And blending styles.
Totally.
You know, and that was I think, I don't know if it was unique to that era or not, but it was special because, I mean, you're meeting all different kinds of people. You're seeing all different kinds of bands. Nothing ever got stale. And you see that reflected when you look at the flyers, especially here from Syracuse in the early mid 90s. Like you would have a band like Overcast play with Starkweather, play with like a youth crew band, play with like a Dark Edge band, you know?
Mm-hmm. Dark Edge.
That's sick. Yeah, I think to your point, Karl, it is kind of a moment in time because now the phrase mixed bill is even a thing.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't even exist. That's a ridiculous concept.
Just a bill.
It's just a bill. It's a show.
Nobody's the same. Nobody's the exact same.
It's really silly.
No.
So Framework is existing side by side with this original iteration of Earth Crisis. They beat you to the punch of being the first full vegan straight edge band, right?
They did. It's very true.
But then you said, guys, what if we merge our powers together?
Well, we were, I mean, they were a full-fledged band with 2 guitar players and a real drummer, you know?
Right.
Like we were just like divvying it up. Okay, bro, you're going to have to play drums.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah.
That's awesome. Come on, man. You gotta sing these lyrics. I wrote them.
So,
I wrote the music.
DJ's out, and Framework essentially absorbs you.
Yeah, that's truthfully what happened. DJ he was not a big fan of my lyrics. He thought they were too over the top. Just to be direct, you know? And I was like, that's fine, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember I showed my friend Don the lyrics, and I showed some of my other friends who were like, I don't know, man.
Really? What were they so averse to?
I don't know. Like, let's say a song like No Allegiance.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's say.
I mean, even by modern standards, it's pretty unforgiving. But for me, music is always, it's an outlet. It's a way to release that anger and vent it out, you know?
Totally.
That's like the psychology behind it for me. So I need it. And, you know, I thought straight edge had been very disrespected by certain people. And no names were used, but I was calling people out. I wanted to let them know how let down I was by not necessarily their choice, but by the disrespect that accompanied it.
Now, is this local? Is this you're saying people are locally disrespecting straight edge, or on a worldwide scale?
Truthfully, both. But what hurt me more was, you know, I've like I said, I grew up in a punk scene as one of the few straight edge dudes. So I was getting along with everyone. I wasn't judging anybody for not being edge, not at all, never. You know, but when certain people that were edge stopped, they would suddenly, you know, see me as the villain. I'm like, where's this coming from? This is bizarre. But it was because they wanted to, like, you know, link up harder with those other people. So they thought it would be cool to diss, which was not very cool. Not necessary either.
No allegiance. Say no more. Understood.
Yeah.
If that's, we found out where the straight edge aspect came from for you. Where did veganism come around? Because it must have been literally cutting edge, mind the pun, at the time. Because vegetarianism was obviously a thing, even with a lot of the 80s punk and hardcore bands, and just in the cultural zeitgeist. Where did veganism, how did that reach you?
We have always got to give credit where credit is due. And, you know, Colin, you like listed some of the biggest edge bands of the time when I was young. So we got to do the same for the people that were pushing animal rights, veganism, vegetarianism, like Conflict, especially Concrete Socks, Youth of Today, Instead. Like all those guys were on top of that.
Yeah.
And they were doing
are these vegan bands? Because Youth of Today, the Go Vegetarian shirt is like that's their kind of marquee item.
Right.
Who went hardest with vegan before you?
Probably Statement, Vegan Reich, and Raid, but they existed simultaneously alongside us.
Man,
totally.
Raid.
Raid. Above the Law. Check it out if you missed it. It's fantastic. Great riffs, great lyrics.
So did music bring you to veganism?
No, it came like that was definitely encouraging, but for me, it came from my grandmother. My grandmother was vegetarian for probably 40, 50 years.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And my aunt, then my mom, then my little sister, they all went vegetarian. And my sister would get the pita stuff. And I'd be like, steak is delicious. This is, you're overreacting to all this.
Yeah.
And
they're going to clip you saying steak is delicious, by the way, just so you know. So.
No, that's okay. That's okay, because we're dealing with reality.
That's right.
What I mean?
That's right.
And that's where I was coming from at that time, at that in my mid-teens, And my sister's like, no, this is what's going on is not right. And she was showing me all that stuff. I was like, this is terrible. They take the calf away from the mother. I don't want anything to do with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I became straight edge at 16, although I, never really had any interest in dabbling with drugs or alcohol or smoking. And I certainly didn't want to do anything that involved cruelty towards animals. So as soon as I saw those images, I was like, oh, I'm out. I'm not doing this. And I became
from day one for the animals, vegan.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I've never been a health nut or an exercise fiend or anything. I should be, but like for me, it's just, it's just purely for the animals. Yeah. Vegan for the animals. Exactly.
Yeah. And then
beautiful.
Let me ask you this, because I want to make sure that we're reconnecting with your latest project with the book. Along this time, were you writing? Like, were you a journaler? Were you writing short stories when you were young? Did you have an early interest in creating in
because you sound like a poet, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, we'll get to your use of thesauruses in a little bit. But
well, here's the thing. Like, for me, the first interview I ever did was with Chad Rapper from Chicago. He's an awesome drummer.
I know Chad very well. I've known him since I was a young teenager.
Okay, well, we love that dude. Did he ever talk about the fight in his living room?
Probably.
Okay, ask him about it. I want him to tell the story. I'm not going to tell him.
I will text him about that after this interview. Excellent.
I'll keep it short. I'll give you the short version. We were staying at his house. I think it was on the All Out War, the Firestorm tour. And he's sitting in a chair. I'm sitting on the couch. My roadies start fighting, literally fighting. And they're grappling on the floor. And I was reading a newspaper. He goes, Carl. I go, don't worry, they'll stop. And they didn't stop.
How was the newspaper?
It was fine. You're just catching up on the day's events.
You got it.
And I was like, come on, guys. Come on, please.
Guys, I'm reading.
And then they stopped. And I guarantee you, he thought we were all utterly insane after that. But anyways, getting back to the point, he did a zine at the time called Persist. Mm-hmm. So the first Earth Crisis interview ever done was with a Chicago zine called Persist. And we were talking about all those bands that you named at the beginning, Colin, and he's like, so what are you into? I was like, I'm into skateboarding, I'm into Lord of the Rings, I'm into Star Wars. I go, it's the Holy Grail, I'm gonna love this stuff forever. And I have loved it forever. And on some levels, it inspired me to write. And I always wrote short stories. I always journaled the tours. I've never released them.
Oh man. Now hold on a second. That is, you have it right over your left shoulder is the Rollins, like the cover of the Rollins book. One of my favorite things I've ever read, or especially his audio book of reading and listening to, is his book, Get in the Van. That I think
I would die for an Earth Crisis version
that would
of that.
be incredible.
Yeah. It exists. It hasn't been ironed out, but all those journals exist, like Firestorm tour, All Out War tour, Destroy the Machines. I would write them down like haikus, just like whatever the craziest thing that happened that day.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it a little.
Get it out.
Before we do that, I want to ask about the wrenches.
Great question.
Because the wrenches are now this universally known symbol of straight edge. It's like almost bigger than the band itself. Well, you got Scott Sparks tatted him on his face as he's writing about shitty rap music. So they're bigger than hardcore. They're bigger than straight edge. Tell me about where the wrenches came from, and how early were they created?
Okay. I'll keep this short, but the Earth First logo. Earth First are the group for any young guys or girls that are listening that haven't really read or heard too much about them. They're a group that would go out in the woods and try and stop logging or mining companies from clear cutting or strip mining or doing things that were destructive towards the natural world and disrupting wildlife's habitats. So these guys were going out there and sabotaging machinery and preventing roads from being put into wilderness areas. Like, they were going all out. And their logo was a stone hammer and a wrench. And I thought that was awesome. And
Judge already took hammers. So.
And Judge already took the hammers. I was like, we need something. We need something. And, you know, I came from a blue collar background, and I had these radical, we all did. We had these radical, which we still do, animal rights, animal liberation views. I was like, how about a wrench to realign and a monkey wrench to sabotage? We'll put them together and overlay them. And that's pretty much the origin of that.
Steven, clip it.
Wow. Beautiful.
Wow.
So you kind of skip the demo phase here. You go straight to the All Out War EP.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is your debut. It's kind of crazy how solidified the identity of Earth Crisis is right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And how most of these guys are still in the band.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you see it with both your bands. You know, when you're out on the road, it's like we are all of us are very lucky to maintain a strong nucleus.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's damn near impossible.
Yeah.
You know?
No, there's guys that have OD'd. There's guys that have been killed in accidents or suicide or these horrible internal feuds, stabbing each other, all kinds of crazy stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is more the norm from like my era than five guys that stick together. So we're very fortunate. And granted, Mike left, but Mike maintained his position in Path of Resistance.
Right.
You know, and granted, Ben left, but he had a job calling in California, and he went for the opportunity. And he's a nutritionist, and he's been very successful out there. He loves it.
Totally.
So
is he a vegan nutritionist?
I believe he is. I believe he's fully vegan. Yes.
That's incredible. That's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then just for the record, and Eric was not in the original lineup, but Eric, Earth Crisis, Freya, Path of Resistance, Eric Edwards, he was in 2 vegan straight edge bands before he joined Earth Crisis, and he would tour with us as a roadie, and we would play with both those bands. And we're going to have Steve put the names up on the screen because I'm blanking right now. Forgive me.
I got you covered.
Yeah,
okay. One of them was cross section. I know that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the reception to All Out War within Syracuse, outside of Syracuse, and how quickly did you kind of guys figure out that this was working and less of a framework side project and more this is it?
The response was shock and horror, because Framework was very melodic and uplifting.
Oh.
And my lyrics were, I felt they needed to be as aggressive as they were.
Yeah.
And that was that. I mean, like, people split up into teams, pro Earth Crisis or let's throw a dead mouse at them when they come to town. You know?
Oh my God.
So was that happening pretty early? The dead mouse and yogurt?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I said,
we'll get into that a little later, maybe.
Yeah, but I said, I was like, okay. And you touched on it earlier. You're like straight edge worldwide. And here's the thing. I dearly love all of the founding fathers from the original era of straight edge.
Totally.
I love their music. We've toured with them. We've played with them. They're friends. They gave me everything I have and everything that I've tried to pass on. But what was missing with that first incarnation of it was like solidified guidelines. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You know, so some people would say,
the
well,
don't fuck has been, is a little iffy in there. People got questions. Caffeine. Where do you stand on caffeine?
It's not necessary for me, but I'm not against it. You know,
okay. It's necessary for me, so I got to do what I got to do here.
And let me ask you. I'm going to throw a quick one at you. You mentioned the founding fathers of that kind. I'm going to hit you with. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, Colin. I want your Rushmore of those bands. Your personal favorite of those bands. We'll have more Rushmores later, but I want to know this one.
Okay, well, we have to give all love and respect to Teen Idols and Minor Threat, of course.
Great.
Of course. But musically, lyrically, stage presence, because I also got to see them and I did not get to see those earlier ones. I'll say Ray Cappo, I'll say Mike Judge, and Dave Smalley.
Dude.
I would take DYS over all his other bands. And I do appreciate Dag Nasty and, the Punk Rock Academy fight bands, all that stuff. I like all that. But, I don't know. You can go back and listen to those records and, like the anger in his voice, and you can't match it,
No, and there's something all of from like Negative Effects and Last Rites and Slapshot through SSD and DYS. There's something that they had that, for my money, no other. I'm a huge early Boston hardcore guy. For my money, no other bands like Judge kind of did it, and I actually wanted to ask: was the more hard-minded and more aggressively lyricked Judge, did that appeal to you right away? Were you like, when the New York hardcore, when the 7-inch came out, the Judge 7-inch came out, were you like, there we go, like Fed Up hits, and you go, yeah, those are the lyrics, that's what I was looking for?
Yes. Yeah, because that's a thing. It's like, at that time, there was like kind of like two camps of straight edge, There was like the suburban guys that were like, hey, I don't want to do drugs. I want to be a successful athlete. I want to be successful in all my future endeavors with school or business or whatever. But we were in the city, so we were like seeing the devastation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We were seeing like the drug sales and our friends from the punk scene becoming full-blown alcoholics or overdosing, or just all the vileness,
Sure.
Like with the street crime, like, oh, great, that car got broken into. Oh, great, that shop owner got ripped off at gunpoint. And half the time it was for people to get quick cash to buy drugs,
Yeah.
And when people say that, when you watch some of these documentaries, oh, the crack epidemic, dude, they were not kidding. That was like drug plague. Like it was everywhere. And you would see people like nodding out on the sidewalk and staggering around and,
well, and especially in Rust Belt cities, when the industry leaves, like you were saying before, when factories are closing and these solid jobs that have been around for a while.
That's what's left.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people were just, kind of left stunned by the situation they found themselves in.
Wow.
I got us off track, but yeah, dude.
But Earth Crisis is your response to that, so it's all one track. This is your coping mechanism through that. Mm-hmm. How long did it take post All Out War? You're established. You're playing shows for young hardcore. You to see and notice young hardcore kids rising in there and being straight edge and being vegan activists and whatnot.
The environmental thing and the animal rights thing was very real for us. Syracuse is on the shores of Onondaga Lake. And Onondaga Lake was surrounded by factories that were putting toxic waste and mercury into it. So we would see, a lake in the summer that's a short bike ride away that you couldn't put your hand in because it was so polluted and poisoned.
Oh,
just some Simpsons Springfield
straight up
toxic plant type shit.
It's hilarious. The first thing I thought of was
doing backflips out of it.
Yeah.
Wow. it was that bad, you know? And you just see all the smoke and the steam pouring into the sky. And right around that time, or a little bit before that time, you know, we'd watch on the news about a neighborhood called Love Canal in Buffalo. A development was built over top of a toxic waste site. And there was radiation leak from a power plant in Pennsylvania that was just a couple hours away. Also, there was the Toxic Tower in Binghamton, a city maybe 45 minutes south of us. And it had, you know, some type of contaminant that they had to bring all the people out of it. And they didn't even know how to demolish the building. So it was just standing there vacant.
So there really was an Earth crisis. You're not lying.
Literally. We were not kidding. Yeah. We were not kidding.
If the response to All Out War was shock and horror, they had another thing coming with the next one. Because right before the All Out War tour starts, which who was on that?
It was us and this awesome band from Vermont, Champion.
Okay.
Oh, another champion.
Early champion.
And we were out on the road.
Better champion now.
Yeah.
And we were out on the road with those guys, and yeah, it was pretty tough. That tour was tough. We recorded Firestorm on that tour.
Right.
On that tour in Cleveland with the late, great Bill Corky, the Firestorm EP would come to life.
Yep. Yeah.
And you signed with Victory. Tell me about that.
Well, we played in Detroit, and I will tell this story. I told this story before, but it was a testament to our tenacity. Okay. We got the show in Detroit, and we were saying yes to everything because we wanted to be out and we wanted to play. So we took my guitar player Scott's girlfriend's car. This car had no dashboard lights. It had a hole in the floor. It had a hole in the muffler, and it had a hole in the gas tank.
Perfect.
Yeah. And no license plates.
Perfect.
So we took some old license plates that her dad had hanging up like for display in the garage, and we put them on the car with coat hanger wire. And I took a little flashlight and I held it in my teeth, and I drove at night because you couldn't see how fast you were going. And if you filled the gas tank up past a certain point, it would spill out onto the ground.
Oh, perfect.
So that's how you'd know.
Yeah. Oh, it's full. Time to go, guys.
Yeah.
So we're driving along and we're going to Detroit. We get to Buffalo, and I think the muffler went out. So we skid.
The one with the holes went out?
That was the one, yeah. So we skid off the highway, and we just happened to pull into a garage. It was at night though. And like we'd given ourselves, a day to get there. Mm-hmm. And we ended up staying with Dennis, our drummer, who is not our drummer yet. Mike was the drummer.
Right.
And I remember we played Jenga with Scott Vogel and Dennis and I think his brothers. It just had like a normal night.
And how crazy is Scott Vogel at this time?
No, at that time he was still normal.
Okay.
Was he like Scott Vogel? Like, do you know what I mean? Was he in bands already, or was this pre?
Yeah, he was in Slugfest. We played with him the next day in Detroit. Gotcha. Yeah, but he wasn't out of his mind yet. He was still. His stage presence is always the same, but
the best.
Yeah, but he was still relatively hinged. I mean, I'm not anymore either, but that's
none of us are. That's why we're here.
That's right. So, anyways, we went to Detroit. We bounced over black ice or something. I remember sliding side on the highway. We pull off, and we get into Detroit. We've never seen anything this bad yet. Like every store had like bulletproof glass, like that thick.
Oh yeah.
Store, what would you want? They're talking to you through like the little microphone.
Sure.
We're at the stoplight. Hookers are reaching in the car. Way to go, baby! It's like, whoa! Like we've never encountered anything that crazy.
Right.
We get to the
so you're
show.
like, damn, Syracuse is kind of awesome.
It was better than Detroit in the early 90s. I'll tell you that much.
Sure.
So anyways, we get in and we play the show and it goes really well. And Chad Rappert happened to be there. And he went back and told Tony, he's like, you got to see this band. These guys are over the top.
Wow.
And that's how he got signed to Firestorm.
Wow.
So tell me about Victory before that. Like the Victory is kind of, their legacy is defined by the 90s, by records like Destroy the Machine, Satisfaction, etc. What was it before that? What made you want to sign with them?
I mean, we loved all the stuff on Tang. We loved New Age. We loved Revelation, but we love Victory most of all. Because Victory put out avant-garde stuff like Iceburn or Integrity, or I think they probably did Confront, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, I think we'd fit in good there. And Tony had been in a straight edge band called Even Score. Yep. Which was great. I mean, this is all probably just local history for you.
It is, but a lot of people don't know that. And also, I wanted to say for anybody listening, any of my Chicago heads out there, Chad Rappert, the guy who keeps coming up, he was in a band called Haunted Life, Expired Youth, One Foot in the Graves. He's been around for ages. And he even once told me when I was a teenager, if I was still straight edge in 5 years, he would buy me dinner. He never did that.
That's awesome.
He never did that.
Chad, if you're hearing this, the bill has come due. Bo is starving.
So did you
meet? He just made it back from Australia.
Yeah. Did you meet Tony on that tour?
I think God's truth is I don't remember when I met him, but I loved Even Score. I loved it.
But on that tour, you record Firestorm right in the beginning, and then you have this conversation about Victory. So you've got this shelved 3-song EP that would really define your entire life by these 3 songs. And then he hears it and is like, yeah, this is cool. I'll put it out. Or is he like, holy fuck, I got to put this out, please, God.
I think we were signed by then. I think Victory sent us there, actually. If memory serves correct, and it might not. Scott is on top of all the dates of everything, but I'm pretty sure we got signed first. And when the 7-inch came out, Eden's Demise was the 4th song. I think it was Forged in the Flames, Firestorm, Forged in the Flames, Unseen Holocaust, and Eden's Demise. And we experimented with a lot of very slow tempos on that record that weren't really what was going on in hardcore at the time. And I think that's one of the things that made us stand out, because I was like, if we stir some metal into the mix, it's going to make the hardcore far more vicious. So let's slow it down.
I was going to say, Colin, you said defining his life. It also changed the way people looked at a guitar.
Totally.
What if we just did this?
What if I went gun and just did that?
Yeah, if we turn the guitar itself into a percussive instrument.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So tell me about writing and recording that. Tell me, and then most importantly, tell me about the response to Firestorm. Because it was this is a controversial song in '93, it turns out.
It was, and I was in college, and I was going off and on, and my original goal was to be a history teacher or a history professor.
Beautiful.
So I was just reading everything voraciously, and during that era, the History Channel was pretty real. It was documentaries. It wasn't just hillbillies killing alligators like it is now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You would watch it and you would absorb really interesting facts about how the cities or the states or the nations had evolved and the different conflicts and inventions. It was incredible. And I'd get names from that, and then I would go get books. And I was reading about, Earth First and the Animal Liberation Front and Greenpeace and the Black Panthers and all these different groups. And I was like, wow, these guys, to some, maybe they're terrorists, to others, they're freedom fighters, but this is fascinating, So, and a lot of that stuff, like Unseen Holocaust, again, we're like Central New York is surrounded by massive reservations. There's the the Oneidas and the Onondagas, and I think they're all part. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but Haudenosaunee or the Iroquois.
Mhm.
So I mean, those guys were coming to shows too, you know?
Wow.
Right, totally.
And I was like, wow, that is crazy. Like right now, there's people that are living in harmony with nature, like in South America, like how everybody used to live, or how these people around us on reservations once lived.
Mhm.
And roads are getting put into their land. It's getting clear cut. So that's what inspired Unseen Holocaust, you know, and the stuff that was going on with the radiation leaks and the toxic tower and the pollution on Onondaga Lake. That's what inspired Eda's demise. Yeah.
Right.
And like, you know, people falling away from straight edge and us kind of in some ways feeling like the last man standing. That's what inspired Forge in the Flames. And for Firestorm, you know, the scene factionalizing and some guys going into the drug game and other guys saying, no fucking way, not ever, you know? So all that stuff was about history, but it was a mixture of what was going on around us in the world and what we literally were experiencing ourselves.
I mean, it still is. Unseen Holocaust is echoes the same of the Palestinian genocide happening right now. It's like it's unfortunately as relevant as ever.
Mm.
Yeah, and people are talking about like, you know, moving everybody out and resettling. And I mean, yeah, it is. It's manifest destiny.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let me ask you, I get the sense that the straight edge thing, as I became familiar with Earth Crisis, especially in these beginning, the first two releases, I get the sense that the straight edge thing was like, well, of course you're straight edge. We're sensical human beings. And then but like we're gonna get like the controversial part is the veganism aspect, like the almost like the catch, because I'm sure veganism at this time wasn't very popular as a lifestyle. Were there songs that were overtly only about straight edge versus songs that were only about veganism?
Yes, and while we're on the topic, I want to give credit to Statement, Raid, and Vegan Reich. We did not mention Vegan Reich earlier, and they had the name vegan in their title.
Yeah.
And Sean has always been very kind and helpful. And I think that first 7-inch they did is great. And and that was one of the things that we did different too. Because if you looked at the biggest bands back then, Uniform Choice, Token Entry, Verbal Assault, or Vegan Reich, or whoever else, they were singing. Naked Reagan, Chicago. They would sing in a nice, clear voice, like the FUs from Boston.
Yeah.
The biggest bands all sang, you know. So, like, I think it was just easier for people it was more palatable, you know.
Sure,
but I was like, no, we're gonna scream hard as fuck,
right.
you know. And Bulldog, you're doing backups. Eric, you're doing backups. You know, before Path Resistance with Earth Crisis, everyone had a backup mic.
Wow.
You know, Dennis,
Beautiful.
we want you to sing too. You know what I mean? Like, like scream like you're dying.
Cool.
You know, scream like we're charging over a hill.
So
you know?
Is Firestorm at this point where you see things really pick up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when we started getting offers for like legit tours.
Yeah.
Right.
The
Yeah.
1, 2.
I mean, we've heard nothing but like in the Josta episode, he tells us about a very early Earth Crisis Hatebreed tour that they were offered that they just couldn't believe that they were offered. Like it was this kind of big rite of passage. Like, wow, we're doing an Earth Crisis tour. This is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard you say, Colin, that like, no, don't be a demo guy. But I will say, Under the Knife, when that came out, I was like, this is perfect.
No, that's
Wow.
fair. It is perfect.
I love that perspective.
Yes, it's a flawless record.
Speaking of Josta, could you tell me about the Josta Pygmy Village?
All right. He was a kid. He was a teen, and he booked Earth Crisis at the Sports Palace in Connecticut. And he said, "You guys can stay with me. You know, after the show." And I was like, "Okay, super." So we played the show at Sports Palace. It was great. I get to his house, and his mom's like, "Why don't you come help me weed the garden?" I was like, "Okay." So,
and how old is he at this time? Because he's booking shows at 13, 14 years old.
he was a kid, and his mom, I think, basically thought I was a kid. So she's like having me help her with chores. I'm like, all righty.
It's the straight edge curse. You looked younger than you were.
I saw pulling weeds with his mom in the garden. And when we left, he paid us. And he goes, let me fill up the gas tank for you. I go, you got to be kidding me, dude. You're going to fill up our gas tank? Like, we've never been treated like royalty before.
Don't fill it up. It'll spill.
No. We had a real vehicle by then.
Okay.
This was like 3 years later.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, the other part of that story is I crashed that car on the way back. I fell asleep at the wheel and totaled it. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So I woke up and we were trying to stay awake. I was like, okay, let's sing Gilligan's Island. So we're just singing Gilligan's Island over again. And I remember I was like, what are all those sparks? And I looked over and I fell asleep and we were scraping the median.
Oh,
and
my God.
And I slammed on the brakes and we spun and hit the wall. So
and you were going, and the skipper too.
Yeah, so it worked for a while, but not all the way back to Syracuse.
So tell me about this Pygmy Village.
Yeah. Okay, so we had a van by then, and he goes, I want to show you that. He goes, the Shamrock Shakes at McDonald's are vegan. I'm like, no, they are not, dude. And I should have known he was a prankster at that point, you know?
Did anybody believe him?
No one believed him. But he's like, we'd heard of like the Jackson Whites. Have you guys ever heard about that stuff?
No.
Okay, well, supposedly in New Jersey, there's some area in the Pine Barrens, some mountainous region where there's a group of families that have just kind of inbred. It's probably like a legend, you know? But anyways, he said there was something like that up there. He was just driving us through the woods. I think it's this way. I think it's way. I think you could fit between those trees. I don't know why we fell for it, but we did. He got us.
This little kid is guiding you into this fake village in the woods.
But he just booked us a beautiful show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you had no choice but to believe him.
We just trusted him at that point. He'd been good to us.
What a little fucker.
Now,
that's incredible.
Back to
Did
your
he
point.
eventually just go, nah, I'm just kidding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Colin,
it was fun.
back to your point. After Firestorm came out and you asked, did they notice it start to pick up? When I have talked to people like Shane Merrill or Jim Grimes or Chad Rapper, like the old heads for me from Chicago, even though Jim wasn't from Chicago, but I've always known him as a Chicago guy. Earth Crisis was like, to Joss's point, the band.
Yeah.
Like the biggest, most like pro serious band at the time. And that's in Chicago, which is pretty far from Syracuse. Were you noticing that everywhere? And how far were you going at that time?
I mean, the big bands, truthfully, were Slapshot and Sick of It All and Agnostic Front and Biohazard, like those. But we were probably the, air quotes, biggest band in our age group. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like you weren't on Roadrunner yet.
No.
Yeah.
But all those other bands, like look at like Biohazard, like they were, I think, Warner Brothers, and Sick of It All was huge, and they still are. But I mean, like, I can't remember which album came out at that time, but I was like, how could they ever top Blood, Sweat, No Tears? And they kept somehow topping it. It was incredible,
Yeah, they did a couple times.
Yeah.
So how far were you going? How far were you touring out on Firestorm? Like 93, 94?
We did that one tour where we recorded Firestorm was so poorly booked. We were literally drinking melted peanut butter out of a jar in the van in Arizona. Like that was our food. That's when we started resorting to like shoplifting for food on the road. It was that bad.
Yeah. Touring as a vegan in 1993.
Yeah, it was.
How
tough.
dark is that?
It was an ordeal.
Okay.
It was.
You guys are just were you just deathly skinny the entire time?
There are some pretty wild photos of how like I was unbelievably thin.
Yeah.
And we were just not getting paid either. Like I remember literally splitting a tostada 4 ways on one of those tours. Yeah, it was crazy. And I felt bad about if we didn't get paid, we would have to steal stuff from the club.
Right.
And then take it to, a music store or pawn shop.
Oh, pawn shop, sure,
take the wedges then,
Yeah. Hey, you gotta eat.
You gotta eat, man.
So, are you like rolling into town and looking up like I don't even know, because Whole Foods didn't exist, right? Like, are you looking up mom and pop like stores? Or are you trying to do as whatever fast food was available at the time? Like, I can't imagine using payphones and atlases to tour, let alone worrying about where I'm going to eat.
Yeah.
Right. We were using paper atlases. We were making calls from payphones. There was no cell phones. There was no laptops. We would go into the grocery store and everyone would have a mission, like steal some food.
You get the Scott, you get the peanut butter. Eric, you get the jelly.
And let me ask you, was there fast food you could eat that, or were you ethically anti-fast food at the time?
We were ethically and still are, but Taco Bell sometimes was the only place that we could go. You
gotta eat.
Cup of beans, brother.
Yeah, we did what we could.
We can destroy the machines with the once we're powered by these beans, real quick.
Yeah.
So you're touring hard on Firestorm. You mentioned Sick of It All, Biohazard, Slapshot. Are you in communication with these bands at all? Do you know them?
We played with Sick of It All in Ithaca, and they were awesome and they were super nice.
Are any of these bands like, damn, you guys rock, we got to take you out? And are any of them like those wacko vegan guys from Syracuse? I don't know about them.
Right. Yes, and that was real. And I'll tell you what happened. We started playing New York City, and Rabies met us from Warzone, and he's like, he was like Johnny Apples. He went around. He's like, we played with Earth Crisis. We hung out with those guys. They're totally nice. So he basically was like the liaison. Wow. And he was, singing our praises to everybody down there. And then that was kind of the icebreaker.
And his word is law to many, especially at that time.
Rabies putting over Earth Crisis is pretty incredible.
That's a good lore, man. Wow. That's real.
He saw the wrenches and he was like, okay.
That'll do. That'll work.
Right. And he, and later on we played shows with them in Europe. We rode on the same bus, and yeah, he was definitely a strong supporter. And I remember he was doing an interview in a book that got put in a book, and this girl was like trying to bait him against us for some reason. And I think it was kind of like old school versus new school. Mm-hmm. I think that was her angle. And in that book, Paulie Edge has that book, and he showed me the excerpt, and he was like, no, those guys are good guys. So he really helped us. And that's how we met Roger, and then his brother Freddie and everybody else.
Of course.
It's crazy to think about old school versus new school at that time being bands that are 10 years apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But
those are contemporaries now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
So 95 rolls around.
Big year.
Mm-hmm. And the people are out there begging. They're saying, Earth Crisis, please give us an album. When will there be an album? And you've been destroying machines your whole life. You figured it was only fitting that it's time to do this on a professional basis with a perfect piece of music. I would call it one of the great hardcore debuts, LPs in history.
Crazy to think. Wow.
Right?
Yes. Debut,
man.
Yeah.
It's a Destroy the Machines is an era-defining landmark record full of incredible metallic riffs, incredible lyrics. Tell me about writing it, recording it, and the kind of critical and audience reception at the time.
We basically took a lot of the elements from Firestorm, like some of those slower tempos, the lower vocals, the aggressive lyrics, and I said, let's take it up a notch. Let's take it up a couple notches on what comes next.
And how involved with you are the musical aspect of Earth Crisis at this time?
I was definitely a big part of the arrangements.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Because the insane step up in musicality and technicality from Firestorm to Destroy the Machines is like it's wild.
Yes.
It's a big leap. Were you influential to that, and were you just kind of in awe of what the riffs were these guys were coming up with?
Well, here's the thing: like everything that we like originally, like we said at the beginning of the interview, like I was a bass player, Birth Crisis, so I was writing the music,
right?
And Ecocide was probably the song I was most proud of.
Sure.
And I was like, this is what we need: tempos like these, riffs like these. Let the drums breathe. Make sure it has that halftime bounce.
Mm-hmm.
And I would work on the arrangements with Ben and Scott and Bulldog. And I'd be like, right there, this is a driving double bass beat. There is the China. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
And
so you're producing essentially.
Right. And I was like, we're going to have staccato vocal cadences over this part.
Awesome.
And then when we do it live, we're all doing the backups,
Fuck yeah.
So we were writing as a unit and performing as a unit.
But then somebody shows up with the and you go, God, you did it.
Right. And again, I always want to take the opportunity to give credit where credit's due. We were musically influenced by Believer, the Dimensions album. We were musically influenced by Conviction.
Right.
We were musically influenced by Zero Tolerance and Slayer. I love South of Heaven. That's probably my favorite Slayer album of all time.
Beautiful.
Okay. So all these things would go on to
they're ingredients.
Influence. Yeah.
So,
ingredients is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you.
Ingredients. We had our own. We had our own recipe, but those were the ingredients.
Let me ask you about my personal favorite song and your opener. The last few times I've seen Earth Crisis recently. Let's talk about The Discipline real quick.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Again, using the guitar as a percussive instrument.
Very much. Yeah.
That's what I tried to do with that song. And we started to touch on this earlier, is I wanted Stray Edge to be clearly defined as to what it meant to me and Scott and Ian and Dennis and Eric. Like, this to us is not a phase. This is not a chapter. This is the story. And the story is, if we abstain from drugs and alcohol and smoking and promiscuity, we are going to be sweeping obstacles out of our path. We're going to achieve our goals quicker and faster, and we're going to be able to see things with a type of clarity that other people can't. So I wanted to present it to the world, what it meant to us, which is it's a lifetime commitment to stay loyal to those ideas.
The reason I even brought it up, and we'll get there, but on a later record, you have Ultramilitants. And being a young straight edge kid, I wanted Ultramilitants to be about straight edge. Come to find it isn't. Right? So I was always curious about defining each thing, because I would assume in some people's mind, maybe your mind, that they're straight edge and veganism are kind of one and the same. I kind of
feel like in Syracuse and all of Europe, I think they're like one thing.
The fourth X is that, whereas for me, kind of religion is kind of that way for me. I think that's part of it for me, and I was always curious about how you saw the two and if they were intermarried or if they were separate,
Well, here's the thing. I didn't want to, we couldn't be Youth for Today. We couldn't be SSD. We didn't dress like them. We didn't sound like them. Mm-hmm. And our message was different too, because it was so direct and so defined.
Beautiful.
And, I respect the uniqueness of what they did. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to do something that would stand out, that was true to who we are, who we will always be, and what our musical taste is. Same thing. Like, some people would say, "Oh, straight edge, it's a law of moderation." Not to us. It's not a law of moderation. It's right. Very defined. And that's why we called it vegan straight edge. We're like, we're doing something different. We're not trying to overtake your thing. We're not trying to take anything away from you. This is just what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And it caught, and it caught in certain parts of the country, certain parts of the world,
did. Yeah.
So you mentioned, Karl, having journals and journals full of tour stories and anecdotes for me.
Yep.
Anything ring a bell that you can tell the people?
Let's get a story from Tour.
I want a Firestorm Tour story. I want a Destroy the Machines tour story. This is going from Weekend Warrior band to shit, this band is my entire life now. So break me off with something.
I will say this. One of them, we played Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Beautiful.
And we were there. I think Warzone was there. Marauder was there with us.
Okay.
Wow. So this is the original iteration. It is now owned by Sir Jamathan Josta.
Yes, it is. It is. And he gifted me with a Milwaukee Metal Fest gas station shirt when we played them in Chicago a couple months ago.
Of course he did.
Yes, he did. So, anyways, we played an early one.
Okay.
And it was Cradle of Filth. It was Marauder. It was us. And
it's a good day.
It was a great day. And some of my guys were moshing for Marauder. And
your stance on Master Killer, could you repeat your famous catchphrase for me? Master
Killer, masterpiece. And I love Deadly Venoms. I do. But that is, like we mentioned when we were together in Alabama, it's like, it's Age of Quarrel. It's Judge Bringing It Down. It's Sick of It All, Blood, Sweat, No Tears. It's Agnostic Front, One Voice.
Deicide.
There's just, Marauder has all those elements, but it's probably, I think it's the greatest New York hardcore record of that decade. Next to One Voice.
It's not just us, I swear to God.
Yeah, it's not us, guys.
No, and live, oh my God, dude. People need to watch them in Syracuse at Hellfest. Watch that video.
Okay. I will.
Here it is.
Check that video out.
So tell us about Milwaukee Metal Fest. What was going on?
Okay, so some of my guys, if you want a crazy story, I mean, we might not want to put this in, but I'm going to tell it anyways. Okay, so Wisconsin had a pretty strong Nazi skin presence in the 90s.
That still does. Yes, sir.
There was two choices for the crazy guys. You could either join the Nazi skinheads or be vegan straight edge, but everybody seemed to gravitate to one or the other, who was like very, very aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Crazy dichotomy there, huh?
But it's real.
You want to be the best guy or the worst guy?
Pretty much. If you were crazy as fuck, you chose your team. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And the bad guys went that way, and I think the good guys went our way.
Yeah, I would say so.
But they were there, and somebody got punched, and tempers were flaring, and we were outside. And before I go on, I'll say this: like some of those dudes, or one of those dudes. Okay. After we went outside, we were standing under a street light, and there was this band. I think they're from Chicago. I think they're called Balls of Power or something like that.
Okay.
And the singer was standing next to me, and these dudes were fucking huge. These dudes are jacked, and all of us are vertically challenged. So vertically challenged, slim frames, at that time. Mm-hmm. And they opened up their trunks and they started fanning out. And this one guy, he opened up the trunk of his car, and I saw him lift up into the air a saw blade, and the light flickered off of the. And
this is Balls of Power.
Balls of Power are with us.
Versus Balls of Power is good guys.
They're good guys on our side. And I turned to the singer. I was like, dude, I got to fight because they hit my friend, but if you want to run, it's okay. He goes, I'm not going to fucking run. I was like, okay, man, I don't know if it's going to go well for any of us.
Holy shit.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
Yeah, so how'd it go?
Police car pulls up with the lights flashing. I was like, oh, my God, we got sick. It was divine intervention because the dude had a saw blade. Come on.
Yeah. Jesus.
You don't want, they made a whole movie franchise about how dangerous those things are. You don't want to use those.
Yeah, no, you don't. And And we had another incident. We were playing with a Gnostic Front in Buffalo, and my bass player threw a brick at those dudes in their car, and this dude chased me with a little samurai sword across the parking lot. It was insane.
Wait, Nazis using samurai swords?
Yeah. Well, they were friends with the Japanese, right?
That's true. Yeah, they are allied.
Yeah, I guess they know their history.
It's the one that's allowed, huh?
I guess.
They eat hot dogs and ramen. That's it. Fucked up. They shouldn't have access to that.
So I mean, it was a very volatile era.
Okay.
Wow.
And maybe we shouldn't tell fight stories, because I don't see you guys normally do that.
We've got some. It's totally fine.
We've got some. It's totally fine. And
there's the statutes up, brother.
The statutes up, and we can bleep names. We could do anything. But the people want to know these stories. You know,
the fight never happened.
Exactly. I mean, my guitar player hit somebody with a rock or brick or something. But I mean, I think that first it was in the pit, then it was with the rock or the brick, and then the saw blades came out. But I mean,
the takeaway is that Chicago and Earth Crisis were willing to fight Nazis with saw blades. That's all. Right. That's all we need to know.
I mean, it didn't look good though.
Well, again, we're being real.
It didn't look like we were going to emerge victorious.
But you were ready to stand up for your beliefs.
We were ready. We were ready. Yeah, we're always ready.
So, Destroy the Machines, after these years of touring, this is the highest selling victory release of all time at that point, and would remain that way for several years.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's right.
Cool.
So that's gotta feel pretty good. I mean, if I'm breaking news to you, that's pretty cool.
Dude, it's a HardLore exclusive for me.
HardLore exclusive.
Karl, let me ask you something real quick before we move on, Colin. When did Firestorm become the closer? Was it like an immediate, oh, this is the song?
We used to open with it, actually.
Well, there was a video mid-90s at the Fireside with a lot of the guys I mentioned, Shane being one of them, losing their minds to you guys closing with Firestorm at the Fireside.
At Fireside, yeah.
So I'm just curious as to when it became like, this is like the hit, we should close with it.
You know, I feel like we used to open with it.
Hard.
Yeah, we used to open with it and close with Gomorrahs. And then it started getting switched into different spots in the set until it became the closer.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes the closer decides itself. There's not much you can do.
You are very
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
Pardon this interruption. We know you're enjoying this incredible episode with Karl. We are too, so we're going to make this fast.
Yes.
Look, manscaped.com. You need it. If we're going to liberate these animals, we can't be stinky.
No. Rule number 1.
Straight edge. You've got enough adversity in your life from everyone around you. Why would you stink too?
The least you could do is have people say, he smells pretty good though.
At least he smells pretty good, and he freed that monkey. You know? That's the dream. So go to manscaped.com, use code HardLore. You're getting 20% and free shipping site-wide. It's an unbelievable deal. The Crop Preserver, one of our favorites. The Crop Reviver, one of our favorites. The legendary Lawnmower 5.0.
That's right.
Another one of our favorites.
Shave the monkey, free the monkey, Manscaped.
Outstanding, Bo. Look at you with the one-liner today.
I'm back. I'm fresh.
Wow. The monkeys will be free once you can see past your disgusting crop, okay? Manscaped.com. HardLore. 20% off, free shipping. Today it's also brought to you by Guilty Party, the #1 menswear store in North America, co-owned by the Drummer Foundation champ, This is an incredible small business with the finest goods that a man can wear. I
check their website so frequently. Every time their Instagram says we got a new product, we got a new brand coming, whatever, it's like I'm a kid on Christmas.
I respond with the emoji every time they post a new thing.
Yeah.
Like these right here.
What do you got?
These full count.
Oh, yeah. The full count.
Denim jeans.
Full count cloth.
Just got them back from Christine, my tailor. This a legend, a Sherman Oaks legend. She's the best. This is love at first wear. I put them on. I couldn't believe them.
That's right.
Those Ironheart engineer pants.
Oh, these, dude. I can't get enough of them. I just got back from tour. First thing I did was change them.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So this could be you. These are things that are built to last a lifetime. And if you use code HardLore, you're going to get 10% off. And if it's over $300, which a lot of the stuff is, you're going to get free shipping too.
But don't be afraid of the price. That doesn't matter, because what matters is these are things that you're going to, they're the clothing that you're going to call a piece, because these pieces are going to last you forever. Somebody asked me, why would I wear selvage denim when I can wear a pair of Levi's? And the answer is you can blow out the crotch of those Levi's taking a piss. Oh,
you know?
Dude,
walking a dog, you're going to blow that thing out. I have to spin kick 400 times before I blow my crotch.
That really is the thing, is cheap denim is cheap denim. Yeah. You're going to see exactly why. Buy one pair of good denim and you will see exactly why people are advocates for it. That's right. Code HardLore, 10% off. Now enjoy this incredible episode with the greatest vegan straight edge frontman of all time. Vegan frontman. I'm crazy today. The greatest vegan straight edge frontman of all time, Karl Buechner. Here we go. Yeah. So, becoming the top dogs in American regular touring HC, I'll call it. that can come controversy. So, with that, I am, of course, talking about the alleged Floorpunch yogurt incident of 1996. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about that and other incidents of that time? You mentioned dead mice. What else was there? Yogurt? Why are these things being thrown at you, and what are they? Okay, here's the thing. Like we said earlier, there were bands like Youth of Today, thinking about vegetarianism, or instead, feel their pain no more. What was different from Earth Crisis as compared to those bands was their message was go vegetarian. Our message was let's save the monkey from the laboratory. Right. Let's break in and rescue the veal calf. Let's destroy the hard drives in the laboratory. Let's directly strike at these people who are abusing and exploiting and torturing these animals. So obviously that's a far more militant approach. Yeah, sure. Rescue and disruption and destroying their data or whatever else, or their devices of torture. And I think that one of those guys in that band, or one of their friends, or somebody's relative was, they were somehow involved in owning a fur storage unit or something. Probably climate controlled. So maybe they were offended by our message or whatever. I see. And, other times too, it was weird. People were sometimes things were ego driven, why is that band headlining over us? We're the kings of this scene. And I would say the same thing every time. I was like, dude, we'll play first. We don't care. Yeah. I want to watch your band. I want to watch every band here. I love hardcore. And also, it's like, you don't want to play after us, brother. Trust me. Well, you don't want to follow that. I've never had an ego about where we play in the bill. It doesn't matter to me, Mm-hmm. I want to watch every band. I want us to play our best. Now with the yogurt incident. Okay. So what I wonder is how aggressively did this yogurt get distributed? How bad was the scene of the crime with this yogurt? It was a yogurt carpet bombing. Okay. Oh, wow. See, I've been curious. Right. But it's a lot. But the funny thing is, nobody had anything to say before we played. Huh. Nobody wanted to debate us or go toe to toe, like
sparring with insults or throwing a punch. You know, they waited till we're on stage and they're throwing stuff from out of the dark. And I was like, I would
yogurt is insane.
Yeah,
yogurt is crazy.
It was ridiculous, you know. But at the same time, hardcore does come from punk.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's wildcats. I mean, I've made a few prank phone calls in my life. You know, I get it.
Best
you know
part
what I mean?
of touring.
Let us also not let's consider the flip side of the coin, where if somebody fundamentally disagrees with Earth Crisis, sabotaging their set is their form of destroying the machine of Earth Crisis. You know what I mean? Like there is a flip side.
You can't destroy the spirit in this machine, my friend.
Wow. What a quote.
Beautiful.
And I'll tell you what. So people are throwing yogurt and they're unplugging our gear. And what was funny is Dennis he just kept the beat and the crowd kept singing.
Wow.
And that was powerful. And Fury of Five were very upset. And
like for you?
They were our friends, and they were very upset because we were guests in New Jersey.
Yep.
And also,
I don't want them upset at me ever.
Dude, they are phenomenal. But I'll tell you a story about them live later. But what is the band from Boston? 454 Big Block were very upset too. All the original FSU dudes, and. You know, so they throw some yogurt, a guy runs up on stage, he's wearing a fake fur coat or a real fur coat, and kids started hitting him. And you can hear me on the mic say, back off. You're going to kill him. Back off. So I wanted to stop.
Yeah.
But what was really cool was when people were being aggressive, our fans kept singing even without the guitars. When the power's cut to Dennis's drum beat, and they actually got up on stage and made a little wall around us. So it was amazing, man.
Wow.
Yeah. Like to try and view that as a diss, actually, I think it backfired big time, you know?
Okay. And have you spoken to anybody involved since?
I don't think I have.
Okay.
And I mean, do you want to go back 10 years before that? You want to go back 10 years before that with a fight on a playground? I mean, it doesn't matter, you know?
Sure. I got you. Yeah.
It's just it's for some reason, it's this critical story in Earth Crisis history.
Well, to the point that it's created the two subgenres of straight edge.
Oh, Earth Crisis straight edge and
Floorpunch straight edge.
No, dude, because think of it like this. It's like, yes, Earth Crisis, experimented with different tempos and darker guitar tones and more aggressive vocals and different subject matter. But I mean, we've got our youth crew band too. We've got Path of Resistance.
Right.
Oh, we're about to get there.
Which we're there right now.
Yeah.
I love youth crew as much as anybody else ever did. Because that's what I grew up with. I love it just as much. But I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something different before I went back and revisited that and celebrated it in our own version.
So let's get into that, because a van crash on Destroy the Machines in that era is directly kind of responsible for the formation of Path of Resistance.
And I read that everyone in the crash was affected in some way.
Everybody got hurt. It was bad. Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
I mean, we traveled pretty poorly during that era. We would take all the seats out of our van.
Okay, gotcha.
And load all the equipment in flat and then put mattresses on it and lay on top of the mattresses.
Did that a couple times myself.
Yeah. And it was, not great when you're doing a U.S. tour.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't think about the fact that everything has momentum and everything's a lot more dense than you are. So if a van rolls once or
you're
in a free floating death machine,
you're in a blender. It's a blender.
Yeah. That machine, my friend, was destroyed for me.
How badly were you injured, Karl?
Honestly, for me, it was just scratches and bruises, but I thought everyone was dead because, I fell asleep and we hit black ice. And our buddy Mike was driving. He goes, we're spinning. And we spun off the highway and then rolled 4 times.
Oh, my God.
And every time we rolled, I was hitting the ceiling. I was hitting the dashboard, hitting the ceiling, hitting the dashboard. And every time we're rolling, the windows are breaking and people are flying out the windows. I kid you not, flying out the windows. No one was left in the back. It was just me and the driver. And I was going.
Can you still see this in your mind when you think about it?
I had nightmares. That was my Vietnam. I had nightmares about that for years, and I turned around, I'm all bloody. And I'm going, Scott Dennessy. And I'm trying to lift up the base cabin. I'm looking for him under the stuff. Because I was I thought they got crushed under the gear.
Yeah.
But they flew out. And I didn't realize that until I looked outside. And there was this trail of wreckage, records and boxes and luggage and everything, and bodies, just guys laying there, knocked out.
But the odds that they all survived with the inertia of being thrown out of a thing that is still moving, potentially crushing them, is unbelievable.
Yeah. It was literally unbelievable. Dennis was laying there and I think he had 2 collapsed lungs, a broken collarbone. Jim had to have his spleen removed. Jim from Conviction was out with us. He would play with us from time to time. He had his spleen removed. His ear was partially detached. Everyone was all cut up. Everyone had to go to the hospital.
Fuck.
And Jim, when Jim regained consciousness, he goes out, is there still time to make it to Salt Lake? Wow.
Of course it's fucking on the way to Salt Lake.
Dude, was it on 70? Was it between Denver and Salt Lake?
I think we were going from Yakima, Washington to
so the other way, but still, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's another tough one.
Yeah. And so anyways, everyone was banged up and Dennis was hurt the worst. So he always a trooper. He's as soon as I'm better, we're going back, We had it took him 3 months to heal fully.
Okay.
Which is pretty fast.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
All things considered.
That's the thing. My guys are they're all fitness. They're all judo, jujitsu. Dennis I think he's a 3rd degree black belt. So, his bones knit quick, considering how much the severity of the injuries he sustained.
Totally.
But anyways, our old drummer from Earth Crisis, Mike, he's okay, we'll do something. And, we were just, we would sit in the van and just talk about songs we wanted to write and different beliefs or different perspectives. And I was straight edge is the path of resistance through life. Ooh. Everything is getting thrown at us. No matter who you are, there is some type of a drug that could tempt you. Maybe you want to be a wrestler or bodybuilder, so you go to steroids. Maybe you want to, paint or sculpt. You could gravitate towards psychedelics. Maybe you have high anxiety, so you would want to smoke a type of weed or what, you know what I mean? There's something. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're wicked into chasing women, so you want to be in a bar and drink, and you know what I mean? There is something that could tempt every personality type.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And that's why I was so straight edge is the path of resistance through life, And I was that would be a great name for a song, maybe even a great name for the new band.
And from what I've heard, the writing of both records was very fast.
We wrote that first record in 3 practices.
Wow.
Yep. And just like how DJ named Earth Crisis, I named Path of Resistance. So the favor was returned because he was one of the 3 vocalists. And I was so if we're going to do a youth crew band, I want faster tempos. I want slower breakdowns. I want more sing-alongs. I want solos and leads. I want multiple singers running around the stage, and everyone will have a backup mic too. So it's an army,
Yeah.
So let me ask you, I had heard that with the 3 singers in mind for Path. Tell me if maybe this is literal folklore made up, but it was kind of the 3 different archetypes for straight edge guys, because one was kind of more punk. You were representing a more, metallic kind of modern guy. And then there was a more an in-between, a more traditional youth crew guy. Was that?
It was purposeful. Yeah. It was direct. Yeah. Because like I said, we love all that youth crew stuff, and we wanted to, keep that torch lit too in our own way.
And let me ask you another thing about this record. Thank you, Taylor. You told us in Alabama that every single one of these people on the cover of this record is still vegan straight edge.
The girls are for sure. Yes.
All the girls. So are there some people in here who maybe you've just kind of lost contact with over time and stuff as life goes on? But was this like the Syracuse straight edge, vegan straight edge?
The dudes are straight edge. I don't know if all of them are vegan, but the girls are definitely both. They're vegan and straight edge. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite.
And that was part of the first Path record too. It's just straight edge, you know?
Oh, okay. Got you. My mistake.
Yeah. But I don't think all the, like I said, I don't think all those dudes are vegan. Some for sure, but the girls definitely.
So one of my favorite record covers, like album art of all time. This is like,
I agree.
Here we are. This eagle is sick. Like I saw this eagle at Halo. It's on a flash sheet. Is it not like framed up in Halo?
I believe it is. Yeah.
It's awesome. And seeing it, I remember I was very young, but I remember being like, oh, that's the one. So you're telling me that See the Damage and Counter, which are my two favorite songs, are written within the 3 practices?
Yeah.
Man, that is incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And how far after was the second record?
Oh, the second record was probably 10, 12 years later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or do you mean how many practices did it take?
Yeah. I mean, was it another quick operation?
Not like that. Oh, okay. Not like that.
It was a little more intentional.
It was. Yeah.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah. We wanted a better recording.
One of my favorite things about that record is you can tell that you have been out on the road just crafting your voice, because there are parts where it's single syllables between each singer, and it'll be like from the back, and like
it made it fun. It made it fun live. It did.
But
yeah,
you sound so insane in contrast to the other singers because your voice is so like finely tuned by that point.
That to me is one of the biggest standout things on Gomorrah. On Gomorrah Season Ends, the next Earth Crisis record is like, that's Karl's voice. Like that's your voice now, kind of really settled into place on Gomorrah, and that just happens to every guy after touring. Yeah. You kind of first hear it on the California Takeover recording, where it's like, damn, this is road worn and his voice sounds crazy. But on Gomorrah, this is like the kind of Earth Crisis final form as we know it. So let's get into that record. Tell me about writing and recording that, because the title track now, like you said, is either the opener or the closer forever, as this incredible statement piece of somehow being the first guy to make "I am straight edge" the simple statement of the song become this beautiful live sing along.
Well, when we wrote that record, again, we took certain elements to Destroy the Machines. I was like, what if it's even slower? What if it's even sludgier?
Yeah.
Okay.
What if it what I want the image of like a bloody body being dragged down a hallway with a light bulb flickering. Like I want this to sound devastatingly dark.
Wow.
And I think in some ways we achieved it. And it took a longer time to craft that record. It did.
You can tell, I mean,
2 years between them maybe was long
for you.
Then.
Yeah.
But we
then
did.
They took,
I mean, we used to practice. When we wrote that record, we had a real band room. We had everything was mic'd. We had quality gear at that point, and we had, real recording sessions where we would demo things, and we tried to like fine tune it as much as we could, but we would practice 3 times a week, and practice was real. Like we'd show up in the morning and jam, and then go to lunch, and then come back and jam, and then we go to dinner, and then we come back and jam.
Wow.
It was beautiful. Yeah. It was beautiful.
So a couple of years of that is what it took to make the Gomorrah record.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it shows.
Yeah. I normally, I mean, we're fast forwarding just to like you playing this song live. I normally dislike when a band does something different from a recorded version.
Yeah.
Earth Crisis playing Gomorrah live, dropping out for the part so that it's just the crowd and hi-hat.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things ever.
Oh, cool. That was fun.
It's incredible.
That was like the first time we did it, I was like, oh, we got to do that every time now.
Yeah. I want to get into your lyrical style a little bit because I think definitely, I mean, even early on, you had a different way of writing in that you're using very eloquent words. The vocabulary is really impressive, difficult to learn as an enjoyer of the music. But I feel like by Gomorrah season end, you were really like a wizard. Like we'll get into Lord of the Rings.
And the listener goes to class a little bit by getting to learn these lyrics.
Yes.
And the reality situation was I was going to class. I was going to college, Okay. I was going to college because I wanted to teach history someday.
And was the title of Gomorrah Season's End, was that you pulling from something you had learned in your studying and you likened it to an application for Earth Crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a story in the Old Testament about a city that was overcome with crime and depravity and victimization and exploitation. And it was seen as so unredeemable that it was destroyed with fire.
Right.
And I was like, we're like, we might want to cut this out, but I will say it. You know what I mean? Like during that era, there was like all those innocent people were killed at Waco, and all those people were getting killed in the streets in LA. And there was other riots, and there's a horrible, horrible war in Bosnia. I was like, man, like this is getting real wild now. Like, are we like on the verge of civilizational collapse or something? Like I'd never seen stuff like that as a kid,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that needs to be cut there. I mean, you're absolutely right. Every generation kind of goes through these big events that define our generations, and what better way to address that than your art?
Art, yeah.
I mean, maybe, but like to me, all I remember is getting chased by cops relentlessly, and handcuffed and being kicked and being slammed into walls. Like the cops would show up, and if I was fucking up, they were fucking me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to see guys getting hit with bricks in the street and everything on fire, I was like, wow, man, the cops aren't even showing up, and this is serious. I was like what's going to happen next? You know what I mean?
And along all of this touring, were you an avid reader too?
Yes.
Like you mentioned Lord of the Rings.
Absolutely. Yeah. News junkie, history junkie, current events, current affairs. And, we're traveling to these cities. So we're seeing this craziness. Right. We're seeing the craziness of Baltimore and Detroit. We're seeing the craziness of certain parts of California, or Chicago, for God's sake, And our city, we would come back and, we would feel safer leaving Syracuse and being on the road at that point by mid-90s. Like it was insane.
I know you mentioned you were journaling along through all this. Are there any inklings yet halfway through this time period of you writing something like creating a novel? Are you seeing something that's inspiring you at the time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what happened, like I would write these short stories on tour. I would also journal the events of the day or our goals. And I would also write science fiction or fantasy stories, and I would just put them in a notebook, in a backpack. Yeah. I put my notebooks in a backpack. Like, I would share my lyrics with my band members.
But they don't get to hear about the wizards and the warlocks.
They're just hearing about them now. Like I kept this under wraps this whole time because I didn't know if anybody'd like it. But one day, I'll just crisscross over into a little different territory real quick, and then we'll get back to Gomorrah's. But like Jeremy's like, oh, come on over, you got to help me. We got to rebuild this part of the dining room for his lady Glinda at the time. And I went over, and he's like, bring that backpack you were telling me about. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I brought it over. And we sat at his kitchen table and he was just reading through the notebooks. And he's like, we should be developing these. We ended up not working at all that day or not getting the thing done because we just sat there.
Poor Glinda, man.
Yeah, Glinda. I mean, she probably had to hire a contractor.
Yeah, she's defying gravity somewhere, getting this table built.
Good, anyways, you know, he was like, we need to develop these into something real. And I was like, well, we'll just pick one. We'll just pick one and we'll work on that. And that's pretty much what happened. But to get back to Gomorrah's, again, I wanted to it seemed to me like things were really coming apart at the seams, you know? And
worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide. And I was like, okay, we're going to need to be a tribe.
Okay.
Wow.
We're going to need to be a tribe. You know, those death camps.
Earth Crisis or Straight Edge?
I wanted Straight Edge to be a tribe.
Okay.
I was like, we need true unity. We need things clearly defined, and we need to understand the threats and the dangers that are out there and to get as far away from it as we can. So that was one of my goals when I put that record together.
I hate to ask this, but is one more important to you than the other? Veganism versus Straight Edge?
Veganism or Straight Edge?
Yeah.
It's brutal.
I know.
It's a brutal question.
I know.
He'll always be both. That I would bet my life.
I'll always be both. I mean, if there was ever like some like crazy collapse or something, I probably would eat a fish before I'd starve to death.
Or before you drank a beer for sustenance.
I would never drink. I would never drink. Or I would never involve myself with anything that's not straight edge. I would never be a girl. I would never be with a girl that's not vegan straight edge. Never. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
Extreme.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's just the way I'm wired, you know?
Sure. Not to get us too off track, but I was just curious.
No, that's all right. So 97.
Yeah.
So this is an incredible time for hardcore in particular.
Yeah.
Roadrunner's on the rise. You guys you're about to sign there, but Gomorrah's out. This is your sophomore LP, the big follow-up. You nailed it. In my mind, I wasn't there, obviously, but like from a musical perspective, I think you did what any Earth Crisis fan wanted to hear next. What was touring on that like? What was the response like?
Gomorrah's was awesome. And I thought Gomorrah's was the highest selling Earth Crisis record. Maybe not. Maybe Destroys is what turned out to be it. But those tours of Europe were fantastic too. And we went over there with Snapcase, and we toured with Strife. We toured with Turmoil, who are phenomenal. Catch up with them if you haven't listened in recent times, everybody.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we were playing with Agnostic Front, and we did, I think that was when we did the Guilty by Association tour with Hatebreed, Scarhead, and Madball.
Good tour.
What a tour.
Which was a crusher, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is Europe?
And that one was in America. That one was here in the US. That was the only bus tour we ever did in the US.
Wow.
And I have journals from that, and that was unbelievable tour. Like, I remember some of the guys were in Mexico and they got arrested and they were handcuffed in the backseat of the police car, and the guy went over and opened the door and got him out. I mean, that tour was over the top. It really was.
Just wild night after wild night?
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
Anything come to mind you can share other than
well, I mean, you know, we might have to skip the details of it, but all I can say is that it was pretty out of control.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I know, because I mean, it is. It's just about storytelling, but at the same time, you just never know. You know what I mean?
No, I get it. Yeah. Some things you just can't talk about as much as you want to.
Along this time, I don't know exactly what the year was because I wasn't able to find it, but there was an interview you did that's pretty infamous, I would say, where you were on the news about straight edge gang activity in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Are you seeing this everywhere? Is Salt Lake a particular bastion that it still is? When it comes to this mentality, like, how did you feel about that at the time?
Okay, here's the thing. There was a band called Lifeless, and the singer Alex was a very, very violent dude.
Mm.
And just like how my cousin was kind of like the alpha wolf, that we followed his example in a lot of ways. The younger guys were looking to Alex.
Gotcha.
And he was like swinging chains with padlocks on him and, getting in horrible brawls with people. And the guys in his circle were the same way. So the young guys thought that was just normal.
Mm.
He ended up being in an accident where a car flipped on black ice and he got paralyzed, and he took his life to end his suffering. But I mean, I think that's what started all that there.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it was just, the warpath he stayed on for so long. It just created this sense of normalcy for younger guys to get in. And I think it's because Salt Lake at the time, you'd go to school, you'd be out of school. I think there was just lots and lots of gangs, probably like where you guys are from,
Sure.
It just seemed normal, Yeah,
you got to wear uniforms in middle school for that reason as a young kid and not really understanding why. Pretty wild.
Yeah. But I think that's why Salt Lake was the way it was.
Interesting.
A straight edge bastion to this day, from what I could tell.
Very, very much.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's cool. So around this time, 1 year later, you guys wrote Breed the Killers very fast, it seems.
Yes.
And that would be your Roadrunner debut. So how did that come about? Roadrunner's definitely like the label in the mid to late 90s. Tell me about them approaching you, writing that record, and ultimately leaving Victory on the note that you were able to come back eventually. Okay,
here's what happened. Hardcore was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and Madball was getting huge. Agnostic Front, Sick of It All. Strife was rising. Snapcase was rising. Marauder, Turmoil. So Marauder and Turmoil went to Century Media.
Right.
And we went with Madball and Both Worlds and Shelter to Roadrunner. I was like, wow, hardcore's going to have its day, baby. It's going to happen. This is real, man.
Sounds
no
familiar.
More drinking melted peanut butter in the Chevy Astro van.
That's right. You can buy the jelly now.
We don't have to put it into our cargo pocket and try and slip out the back door.
This is how big were? Let me ask you something.
Oh, Carl. Great question, Colin.
How big were them cargo pockets at the time?
Let me tell you what. I never owned a single pair of Jenkos ever.
Oh,
never.
How about that?
And I never moshed with a backpack. Never. Those things never happened. I was always
so that's urban legend about you.
No, that's chokehold.
Yeah, but you got that hat on right now, and that's a whole other urban legend.
Why? What's wrong with that?
Nothing. That's what I'm saying. You're defining archetype right now. I love to see it.
Okay. No, these hats are just a Boston, New York thing. Do you guys have them out there? I don't know.
Yeah, we got them in Chicago for sure.
Okay.
They're out here
for sure.
Okay.
But it's like a certified old head staple,
Okay. Yes, that's true. If you're a 55, 45-year-old hardcore guy, you probably got 3 of them.
You're invited to the unction if you got one of those on,
That's right.
I love it. So
Breed the
Roadrunner
Killers
comes calling. This is their top dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They want your next record.
They do.
How hard of a decision is that?
It's perfect. It's awesome. We're going to be with our pals and Shelter, who we toured with. We're going to be with Both Worlds and Madball. It's going to be beautiful, So we're very stoked. We got brought aboard. I was like, wow, look at this. We're going to be on here for like 6 records. We made it. We made it.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, along comes a little band that we met out in Iowa. We played out there, and
wow,
we're hanging out in the van on the sidewalk after the show, and we meet these crazy guys. We're like, yeah, man, we wear masks and we jump on trampolines, and we got some metallic hardcore stuff going on. I was like, oh, cool. And it was Slipknot. So
and now their festival brings us this very show.
Right. So Slipknot came out, and Roadrunner was like, no more hardcore.
Wow.
Slipknot. We need Mushroom Head. We need these guys. We need those guys. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So they kind of dissolved their hardcore divisions pretty quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's pretty much what happened. You know what I mean?
Slipknot killed Roadrunner HC.
I'm not going to say that because they were supportive and they've been super good to us.
And
They've had us
inadvertently because the labels their entire economic system was redistributed to new metal at that time.
I'm sure
that's what I'm saying. New metal, like hardcore was rising, bam, here comes new metal. You know what I mean?
Totally.
One thing I was going to say that we haven't touched on, but I would love to talk about is Earth Crisis merch.
Okay.
The merchandise over the years and for lack of a better term, I don't like saying branding, but for lack of a better term, the branding of Earth Crisis felt extremely deliberate and extremely like you didn't just put whatever on a shirt. You were very thoughtful and mindful about what was going on a shirt and what you were putting out there. I'm just always curious, especially hearing about guys from before our time, how that happened, where designs came from, where inspiration.
Who's doing that? Are you making them in MS Paint?
Yeah.
How are you putting these things together?
Yeah.
What was that process like 30 years ago?
Okay. When it comes to album art, when it comes to t-shirt designs, they're all things that we've kind of had a vision for and for the most part directed an artist to create the image for us.
Sure.
And just like with the wrenches, it's like the symbology and, for lack of a better term, the slogans. I want it to leave an impression.
Yeah.
I want it to be in a way its own piece of art, and to send a message.
Dude, the recycling symbol should not be cool.
That should not be that cool.
It shouldn't work, but it works so well for Earth Crisis specifically.
Yeah, and I love the idea you guys came up with us for the three wrenches for the 30-year anniversary.
That was us.
That still needs to happen. All credit goes to you guys for that. Yeah.
So I like you mentioned earlier, I just got back from Australia and I picked up a very cool Earth Crisis design.
Oh, that's with a road grader,
dude. Indigenous people throwing weapons at a bulldozer
and
destroy the machines.
They are attempting to destroy that dragon-like machine monster that is destroying their forest, and that is from an Earth First book.
Perfect.
Wow.
Perfect. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. That's exactly what we were looking for.
That's
there.
Exactly right. Yeah. Wow.
And well, just to wrap up with Roadrunner, it's like, I love the label. I thought it was awesome that we got to release that record on it. Like when you lifted the CD out of the tray, there was like a 5-paragraph essay, for lack of a better term, again, that was about the correlation between veganism and a healthier natural world. So I felt like at that point, it's like, okay, we accomplished one of the biggest parts of our mission. We made it to a real deal label.
Yep.
That was reaching out beyond hardcore into just kids that liked, thrash metal, death metal, really aggressive stuff that probably had never heard about any of that stuff before, or straight edge either.
Absolutely.
So I felt like even though we were only on the label for one record, to me, it felt like a massive win.
Big time.
And your voice, again, sounds unreal on this record in particular.
Well, I agree, and I do think I would hope that Roadrunner feels good about releasing the hardest Earth Crisis song of all time, which is, of course, Ultramilitance.
Dude, I'll tell you what, Ultramilitance is a super fun song to play, but if I'm going to be honest, I just think it needed to be a little shorter.
It is 4 minutes. It's 4 plus.
Yes.
4 plus is tough.
Yeah. And I said, listen, I've been arranging and producing a lot of this stuff over the years. You got to trust me. 4 is too long for the core.
You're the guy who's interfacing with the live environment. the most, right? No one,
trust
no
me,
one knows
dude.
better. Yeah.
4 is too long. These guys are going to all be out of breath.
But the now this war has two sides.
Yeah.
Well, again, was such a statement for young me. I wanted it to be about straight edge so badly.
I know. But instead, but I love that image because the war now having two sides, I literally picture monkeys with guns and spears and stuff fighting back.
Dude, the Unraveling the Council of Crows comes out on Earth Day, and I am as proud as can be of that book. Thanks to my buddy Jeremy and my buddy Keith, it exists. Like I said,
war having two sides.
Yeah, it has two sides. Like that. If it ever gets animated, that song should be in the movie.
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Finally. So what was the treatment like at Roadrunner versus something like what you were used to at Victory?
I mean, Victory was first class. I mean, they would fly us out there for meetings and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And, they'd lay out like a spread for us. And I mean, they did a lot more right than wrong. That's for sure.
So it was really, you were experimenting with the Roadrunner decision. It was just like, hey, we have to do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And clearly Tony understood enough to welcome you right back to Victory.
Yeah. There was no hard feelings. No.
Cool.
And we put Slither together, and again, like we would get credit to jump ahead now on the timeline.
Yeah, let's do it.
We got criticized for Slither. I was like, dude, we wrote a song called "Killing Brain Cells," where you can clearly hear every word that it's about how destructive alcoholism to the individual and their circle of friends and family. Yeah. It was clear enough. And the tempo was slow enough, it could have been played on the radio. That is delivering the straight edge message. And people are like, you guys sold out, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how on earth could you brand us with that when we've got animal rights songs and straight edge stuff? And it's clear. It's clear.
You're just changing the form of the message, but the message remains the same.
Yes, changing the delivery system for the message to make it slightly more coherent.
Yeah, I think it's a controversial cult favorite is how I would call it now.
So growing up, much like Alpha Omega or something, like growing up and you're hearing about, you got to check out this record, got to check out this record. By this time, they changed. That can apply to a million bands. When you revisit Slither as like someone who's older and into heavier stuff, I was much more of a punk kid growing up. Mm-hmm. Couple fucking tracks. Man.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the same guys, which is, the evolution is there. The trajectory is there. Tell me about what went into Slither and how the, we'll call it mixed response at the time felt.
Well, some people loved it, man. And, and other people are like, it's too, it's too melodic or it's too clear. You know what I mean? It did have kind of a higher end quality to it, like tonally, I think.
But so did Breed the Killers.
Absolutely.
Which that really worked for that record is very clean and very hard, which is a really tough balance.
Tough, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. I wanted to try and get it to a point where you could hear the words and understand them without the lyric sheet. So that's what I was kind of striving for with both those releases, and I think we got it on Slither. At least that aspect.
So do you look back fondly today at Slither?
The one thing I will say about Slither is this. Maybe it should have been the first Freya record. I don't know.
Okay.
But as an Earth Crisis record, as a vehicle for delivering a message, I think it accomplished its mission.
Absolutely.
Totally.
I remember reading criticisms of you specifically for wearing a leather appearing jacket for a promo shoot, which is like, it's really funny. I'm not even going to ask you. I'm going to assume that it's just fake leather. And
for sure.
If you look at any of those old photos, like I never gravitated towards like canvas or denim. I always wore like the fake leather Adidas on stage, the fake leather belt, So
it's so funny that was a criticism when it's just like, guys.
Some things don't need to be said.
Yeah, exactly.
It's winter. We're going to wear our jackets. So it's okay,
Yeah.
Sure. So a year later, you guys break up.
Mm-hmm.
We did, yes.
You're done. Tell me about why that happened and what the next few was it you were like, I want to do Freya full time, or what else went into it?
No, not at all. It's like, I mean, we successfully did Earth Crisis and Path and let them overlap.
Totally, yeah.
But the thing was, during that time, like, I'm sure with both your bands, with all your bands, you guys aren't jamming in the same room.
Almost never.
Yeah.
It's which I would love to. I hate that that's the case.
It'd be easier, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But we didn't know that we could do that yet. and Scott's lady got a really good job, and Dennis got a good job offer at Buffalo, where he's from. It just seemed like, okay, well, we can't do this full time. I mean, the God's truth is we were tour burnt after 10 years. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Everybody that hits everybody.
Right.
Sure does.
And we're like, okay, well, we'll reignite Path of Resistance, and we'll just all work on projects, and that'll be fine. And that's pretty much what happened. Mm-hmm. It did take a couple of years to get the Path record out. It did. And Scott and Dennis worked a little bit on a band called Slave One. Scott did a studio project called Isolated. And I did Freya with Bulldog and Eric because they stayed in Syracuse. And the other guys moved away.
Mm-hmm.
And we would join up and work on the Path record. And after a while, I realized, you can write parts here and just email them. You can write parts here and email the file, and we can build the record like that.
Revolutionary.
Yeah. And after we did the Path record, I'm sure it was just a year or two later that Earth Crisis came back. It was like, okay, well, we can absolutely do this. Like, the technology saves the day.
Dude, destroy some machines.
Right. Only the machines that kill the forest. We need all the
email machines.
Yes.
Destroy them.
Yes. I mean, I'm not anti-technology. Yeah, I'm not anti-technology in any way. And the line is destroy the machines that kill the forest, that disfigure the earth. You know what I mean? So it's technology being used in a negative way that's destructive.
Are you
good
with
AI is the new forefront of that. It's just totally absolutely destroying everything.
Fuck
right.
That. Fuck AI.
And I've got that punk band that I do, Apocalypse Tribe, and that record is called AI Mageddon. So I tackled that with that.
See, there we go.
See, he already knew.
Cover.
He already knew. Do you have a hard time recalling your lyrics, Karl?
No. Everything's in the hard drive. The only thing that gets me is if I don't know what song is next. I gotta have a set list.
Yeah.
So you can think of that first line and be like, okay.
Yeah, that's the cue.
Straight edge. Okay, got it. Yeah, I get that relatable feeling.
Right.
So emailing, the ability to email and send riffs is what got Earth Crisis back together somehow?
I'm just saying, like that's how we worked on the second Path record, and we saw, okay, this can be done. We don't all have to live in the same place,
right?
Okay.
And jam in the same room. But that's how we did everything else. Like I was saying,
it makes
we'd come back
sense.
from tours and people would work part-time jobs, but like the majority of our time was spent composing,
So that was Earth Crisis to you, was where we are the guys together in the room. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Path was not.
Right.
There was no animosity. There was no falling out. Like, all of our friendships were strong. Everybody's the godfather to this guy's daughter or son. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Everything was fine. It's just like, okay, job opportunities, more income, have some type of stability. I mean, look, these are stories. We're all telling stories today, but like, a lot of it was not fun. You know what I mean? A lot of it was not fun.
It's hard.
Like getting ripped off by, like, I don't really know what things are now, but back then a lot of clubs were like mob money laundering operations, and sometimes you get ripped off, and like
that mob is called Live Nation.
Yeah, it's a different kind of mob.
Okay, but like back then, like a guy that might be out breaking kneecaps, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and that's a real thing.
Yeah,
sure.
It's like, hey, we can't lean on this promoter. I mean, his nephews, look like they're out of central casting for some, like,
Scorsese movie,
underworld crime film.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And like I said, just it's everything, you know? I mean, touring is never easy. It doesn't matter that there's iPods and laptops and, you know, routing and everything else off the satellite. It's GPS. It doesn't matter. It's still hard. You're still away from, you know, your lady and your brothers and everybody else, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Totally.
Let me ask you something. I was just going to ask you something personal about you.
Yeah.
It's one word. Bandanas. You are the forefather of sporting a bandana.
It's truly the George Washington of bandanas.
Okay, here's the thing. Like I said, I was a skateboarder. And for as horrifically cold as the Syracuse winter is, like we are in a valley. And a lot of central New York is swamps. People don't know that. And it is hot and muggy as hell for like 5 months here.
Sure.
So more than being any type of a fashion statement or something, it's a necessity if you're working outside, if you're skateboarding, if you're riding a bike, if you're running. Sweat's just going to be pouring in your eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's functional. It's a functional utility for you.
It's a functional thing. But again, credit where credit's due. That's what we should call this episode, you know? Christian Hosoi, always sporting the bandana. Tony Alva, always sporting the bandana. We just thought that was normal, you know?
Totally.
To us, there was no like, you know, motorcycle gang connotation or street gang connotation. Zero. It was skateboarding, you know?
Amazing.
Functional swag.
Love that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, it's like
the way Ralph Lauren intended, you know?
All right. You're bouncing jokes and I'm trying to stay on target here.
I'm sorry.
All right, here's the thing. So if you look at Path or Earthquakes or Freya over all these years, it's always the same. I'm wearing the same types of shoes. I'm wearing the same types of fatigues. I'm wearing the same types of shirts that are 2 sizes too large. Like I've never tried to be a fashionista in any way. You know what I mean? It's like we're going to grab a Powell Peralta shirt and a windbreaker, and we're gonna see what happens.
And we're gonna leave the Jinkos on the rack. We're not fucking with those.
I got
Jinkos,
one more.
Go to Chokehold. Get them all.
I got one more kind of fashion, but not really fashion, hardcore related thing. On the cover of the Path record is a guy in construction gloves that are X'd up. Construction gloves are, of course, a New York City thing.
Yeah.
I've always wondered where that came from. I asked Joe Hardcore recently. He gave me where he thought it came from. I'm just curious. I want to ask guys from before our time, like what was the function of wearing construction gloves?
That came from Mike Judge or Project X. And I think it was just a way to protect your hands. You know, sometimes you get nicked by people's teeth when they're in a sing-along.
Wow. Fascinating. Because rabies wore them. I read a thing, Joe mentioned that Roger wore them. So it wasn't necessarily like an edge thing. It was just...
My hands are safe and sound ever since wearing them leather X gloves. So honestly,
Look at that.
You're right.
Wow.
Because that's the
Pure
thing.
function.
During a pileup on a sing-along, sometimes you wind up and you see a little tooth mark in your hand. You know what I mean?
Catch rabies from one of those.
That's a great problem to have. So many people singing that they bite your ass.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Good stuff.
It'll happen. That's why the gloves are, honestly, they are a good idea.
They are a good idea. Fascinating. Love that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So what ultimately makes you get back together? How does it come about? How does it happen?
The opportunity was there. The means were there. The friendships were strong. Everyone's hard drives were just riff banks. You know, the vaults everything was stacked up. So we had just had tons of material to choose from. And the offers had been there the entire time.
That's beautiful.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I felt like, you know what? It's like, Scott, the isolated CD is fantastic. Your vocals are great. Everybody should check that out. And I feel like Freya had accomplished very cool things. You know, we had played some really cool festivals. We had videos on an MTV and stuff. Like, I was like, it's not time to revisit Earthquakes. It's time to reactivate it and accomplish what we didn't before. You know, we can have better artwork. We can have better songs. We can have better recordings. We could be on a label that gives us a little bit more of a push. And you know, I know you don't really want to stray over into that following era. But
not by me.
No, we want to hear what you got.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what happened. And it's like, okay, Ultra Militants didn't do the job. So Vegan to the Death, was kind of like, let's try it again and see if we can structure it properly. I feel like Vegan to the Death, like that song accomplished what Ultra Militants didn't, as far as like getting a crowd going.
Like you had the same intention.
Yeah.
With both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you recently finally did a proper recording of Smash or Be Smashed.
Yeah, after all these years. Yeah, that's
fun. Awesome.
That was
I just put it on again the other day. It turned out great.
Dude, I was going to say, I'm going to the gym after this. I know what I'm listening to.
From 2001 to 2007, what did you notice in terms of differences? How has the response been since?
Between 2001 and 2007?
Yeah, like that was Earth Crisis' big absence. So you come back, you've been playing in other bands, but Earth Crisis is reaching an entire generation that never got to see it. Like Earth Crisis, as I was finding hardcore, was this thing that had came and went.
Yeah, a myth.
This mythical thing that I loved that I didn't have access to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And suddenly you're playing at the Ventura Theater in a couple weeks with my brother's band,
Yeah.
So that was cool. Tell me about just reaching a new generation of hardcore people and how that response was upon your initial comeback.
All wearing the tightest clothes you've seen in decades at these shows.
That is true.
Yes. Well, I think that a lot of the crew stuff was starting to calm down finally, which was good because shows were violent. And I think that some of the negative stuff that was on the peripheral edges of our world was starting to die down too, which was good. It seemed like the proper spirit was there. And we played Maryland Metal Fest. I think that was our first show back with Full Blow Chaos and Tyrant.
It was New England Metal and Hardcore Fest.
Okay, New England.
No.
And it was awesome. It was awesome. Like, people had been to see Path and they were supportive and cool. Path had been to Europe, Path had been to California. So I felt like between Freya and Isolated and Path Resistance, we had accomplished some pretty cool things during that gap in time. And when we came back, kids were very stoked, and they're bringing their little brothers. And there was some guys that hadn't seen us before that were seeing us for the first time, and they knew words to the new record, and it was really cool. It was.
Beautiful. And how do you reflect now on Earth Crisis overall legacy? Getting people like me into straight edge, getting tens of thousands of people into veganism, probably.
I think it is a team effort. It really is a team effort. It's a collective force of all the bands that we love, and us just passing the torch to each other. And I mean, think about what you guys do, with Harm's Way and God's Hate and Dead Body and everything. Like, we're all doing the same thing. We're all still in love with this music. We're all still obsessed with it. It's in our blood. We love it. It hurts us to do it. It tears us away from things. It puts us in parts of the world we might otherwise never go. That some of them are dangerous, but yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't, because everything is, everything is a lesson that we can learn from, and it helps us advance, and it helps us understand other people and ourselves. And I know that sounds a little hippie-ish, but it's real.
I mean, I think being vegan straight edge for 30 years, you're allowed to get hippie-ish as much as you want, One love,
For real. We're named after reggae. Man. We're named after a reggae song. Come on.
See? It's fine.
The interesting thing is, though, Karl, is like Colin and I have bands to go off of. Yeah. Even Josta said they had Earth Crisis to kind of go off of as to what was possible. The direction, both ethically and like the message and musically, that Earth Crisis was doing, all combined in one. I know that there were influences, but truly combined into one package is unheard of prior, and just really amazing to see the impact thereof, and to like hear these stories and to see, exactly what you were able to do with such a thing.
Well, here's the thing, it's like I said, I thought, and we got critiqued by your brother a little bit. I remember in an episode in the past.
And what was it?
He said, not everything with Earth Crisis is real. Like they were singing about some stuff, like let's say a nuclear war or whatever.
Oh,
okay.
Do you remember that?
No, but I mean, I got nuclear war songs, so I get it. I get where you're coming. In my mind, the nuclear war is real
because we lost to push button warfare, right?
Oh, and I see in the brackets.
Man, Carl's watching a little more than we know.
Dude, you guys are my favorite podcast. I'm not even kidding.
Man,
I watch you guys more than Joe Rogan. I really do,
Oh,
man. I love it.
Well, thank God for that. Huh?
That's how I could recognize your voices before we turn the camera around.
Beautiful.
That's incredible.
I could address you by name because I know your voices. But anyways, yeah, I think that we witnessed so much environmental devastation, so many casualties and fatalities of the drug plague, so many suicides and everything else that just were related to the chaos of what was going on in the city when we grew up.
Yeah.
Then it was like, we have to develop a plan. We have to have a code of conduct, and we have to be a brotherhood and a sisterhood and stick together, because I literally think everything's going to collapse.
Wow.
And you've thought that since 1993.
Pretty much. I mean, that's how crazy things were. Like,
yeah.
It's like, okay, you heard World War II, never again, never again, never again. I'm like 23, 24 years old, and there's death camps in Europe again. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm watching the police not show up and guys getting smacked with bricks, and everything's on fire, and the police are staying home, and it was just getting crazier and crazier. I was like, this is not a game. This is real. Like, we have to be a brotherhood and a sisterhood and stick together, because, like I said, I feel like we're just headed into more and more dangerous times.
Amen.
Wow.
Including right now.
And I don't want that. I want to heal the world. I want unity between people. And the hardcore scene I grew up in, that I helped be a part of putting together, was the opposite of cancel culture. It was inclusive culture. You didn't have to think the exact same way to be my friend, and Freya, that was part of Freya too. It's like, we got this band that I want everybody to play in. It can be its own tribe. If you're free, come with us. And if you want to drink, you can drink. I'm going to be driving, so you'll be fine. You know what I mean?
I mean, one thing that I do, and I've always admired about Earth Crisis, is that it's not nihilistic. It's like
it's pretty.
It's like
it's very optimistic.
Whether you agree with us or not, here's how we think you can fix yourself or fix things. And that's kind of rare, it's easy to write nihilistically. It's easy to be like, yeah, it's all fucked.
Right.
That's an easier path of least resistance. Yeah.
In many ways, yeah.
Something we talked about during that interview we did many years ago now, Karl, was, and that I'd like to leave this on before we get to some questions from our Patreon people.
Okay.
I want to talk about the bunker, Karl. I'm doing the call in public. Who do we still got? What new bands are going in the bunker? And the bunker, of course, meaning who is still straight edge? And in the apocalypse, who are we saving?
We're going to save everybody we can. And I'll tell you what, Paulie from Storm, still straight edge. Chuck from Black Sheep Squadron, he's a lifer.
Okay.
The guys in Perfect Murder up in Canada. We've got Undying in North Carolina, all still edge.
Who have we lost in the past 3 years? What straight edge in memoriams can we do since 2022?
Well, we lost Isaac from Chorus to the Grim Reaper.
Oh, geez. Really?
Yeah. I think he got hit on a motorcycle.
Oh, that's devastating. Horrible.
Yes. And we love Chorus. I mean, that
big Chorus fan
inspired the Path album cover, the first one.
Really?
Like if you go back and look at the Course of Disapproval album. That was the source of the image.
Wow, that's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean that.
Yeah, R.I.P.
I didn't mean to actually.
No, I don't keep tabs on the edge breakers or the sellouts. I don't.
You keep tabs on the new blood.
The positive.
Who do we got? What are some modern straight edge bands you want? New straight edge bands you want in the bunker with us?
We're gonna have Clear Cut from Germany.
Okay.
We need some Germans to keep us on our toes. So that makes sense.
We do keep things organized.
We gotta stay humble. You know.
Yeah, keep things organized.
Yeah.
Eco Strike.
Yeah, Eco Strike.
Of course.
Nomad.
Okay.
There's a new straight edge band from Syracuse with a girl singing.
Oh, really?
Is that
cool.
I don't want to say the wrong band.
Yeah.
It's X. Oh man.
Love it already.
Yeah. I'll look it up. It up.
We got Firestarter, Carl.
We got Firestarter.
Rest assured there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's plenty.
So the bunker was getting small for a while.
Siver from Japan.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
We need them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's something I wanted to ask you about, Carl. If you're done with the bunker,
are we? Is the bunker full?
Bunker's cannot possibly be full. We need more.
We need more.
Okay.
We need more square footage.
I gave you some. Give me some. I'm ready.
I gave you Firestarter. I need in the bunker. I need
Firestarter's in the bunker. I would say Magnitude's in the bunker. They're young.
Of course.
They're hungry edgemen.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I saw them. They were
Foundation. Great. Foundation could go right in that bunker.
They're Georgia, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep. Quality there.
So if you're in a straight edge band, put your name below, and we'll see if we can make some room for you in the bunker there.
Colin and I are the doormen for the bunker. We'll see if you're on the list.
We're the door. Yeah, we're there with sunglasses on.
Just like, Real quick, what I wanted to ask about.
Oh, yes.
Earth Crisis had a DVD.
Yes.
Which was like fucking crazy to me to learn about in early 2000s when I learned about it. In it, you're touring and playing in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I think even in the DVD, there's like, this is us in Japan. We're eating fucking rice because it's the only
fish
thing.
Heads everywhere.
And
they go heavy with the seafood. Yeah.
It broke my brain. You had heard about bands going to Canada, going to Europe. That was normal. A hardcore band touring Japan seemed like such a reach to me.
Yeah. As
I was young, I didn't think that would even be possible. And I'm just curious about how you found it your first time being there, and how you managed to not starve.
I think that we were the first American straight edge band to play Japan. At least the first straight edge hardcore band to play Japan.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for opening the door, because now I don't want to play anywhere else.
That's all I want.
Yeah, it is incredible. You know, we've been to Japan, we've been to Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, but we've never been to Korea yet. Have either of you guys been there?
Not been to Korea.
No, I'm dying to go.
You're trying to play Seoul.
Yeah, I would love to go to Korea.
You're going to Brazil tomorrow. That's pretty cool.
Yep, Brazil is tomorrow. Yeah, it's coming quick.
Awesome. Well, let's not keep you. Let's hit these questions.
Yeah, let's get this.
Okay, fire at will.
All right, first question. Watching Earth Crisis sets from the 90s and early 2000s, Carl had a sick-ass T-shirt collection. Do you still have these crazy pieces, stuff like Animal Liberation Front designs, etc.?
I do. Yep. Everything's been well taken care of. I basically have like a little museum of all the stuff, and I kept every demo anyone's ever given me too.
Wow.
We need them for the bunker. Let's see here. Tell us about.
It could get dull in there. You're right. We need them.
Yeah, we need entertainment other than the Germans. Could you tell us about having Rob Flynn do a guest spot on One Against All?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Burning Red is a masterpiece. So
Burning Red is the masterpiece of the Discog?
It might be.
Over Burn My Eyes?
Which is the one that has Let Freedom Ring with a Shotgun Blast?
That's Burn My Eyes.
Yes.
Okay, Burn My Eyes.
There's
Sorry.
burning involved in both. You're a fire guy. It makes sense.
They got me with the Shotgun Blast line. I was like, okay, I love this band.
About Waco, which you had mentioned before as being kind of, influential to you. Absolutely. When it came to lyrics and stuff. So
did you just reach out cold, or was this a Roadrunner connection thing?
I think Scott knew him because Scott had lived in California.
Okay.
I think that's how that happened.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Are there any other passions in life that you hold as dearly as you do vegan and straight edge?
I mean, I have plenty of hobbies. Yeah. I mean, I've done everything. I used to play street hockey. I did softball. I did martial arts and fenced. I've done everything. I've done everything. Yeah.
Very cool. What are your top 3 non-major city scenes to play for, or were maybe in the 90s?
That's a good one.
Because now everywhere kind of rocks. So, what were those underrated places where you'd show up not knowing what the crowd was going to be like, and then it was just insane?
Moosic, Pennsylvania would have to be one of them.
Never heard that name in my whole life.
Yeah, that was great. We would play there. We'd play Springfield, Mass.
Okay,
they had a wild scene. Yep.
Well, that's Western Mass. I've played there once.
Oh, Western. Sorry.
No,
Spring. Yeah,
and Maine. Maine was awesome too.
Wow.
I remember my bass player was jumping and he broke the stage.
Hell yeah. He's a thick boy. So that
he is. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
For sure.
So there's this famous photo of a kid in his room with one X on his fist and a bunch of, looks like Pluto stuffed animals. Can you confirm or deny whether or not this is you?
That is me, indeed.
Wow.
You got a pink ombre.
That's right.
You're really ahead of your time here. I don't think you even know.
In what way?
Like this, I see the singer of a band I'm going to go see at midnight hour here.
Yeah, he'd be big in the Scram scene.
Yeah, and then having the Pluto collection, I feel like people would be much more loud and proud about the Pluto collection now. Tell me about this kid seen here. Tell me about the origin of this photo too.
Okay, that was there's some core stuff on the wall. There's a map of Middle Earth.
Oh,
there's probably some Star Wars stuff and Tarzan books.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
All Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
the Middle Earth map is right above the Convulsion and Cramp sticker, and next to the Fate Void record.
That's right. Yeah, so I mean that's basically what. Before there was a flood from the attic that wrecked that room. That's pretty much what it looked like for 6 straight years. Yeah,
it's a good bedspread too. It looks crazy. This is an incredible picture. I need a new Earth Crisis shirt with this picture.
With that picture,
it's time. It's time.
Is the lore true that the FBI sent warning letters to factory farms upon the release of Breed the Killers?
That is true. And that comes directly from, let's see, Peter Young. Peter Young was an ALF activist that freed probably thousands of animals from fur ranches. Vegan straight edge guy from Pacific Northwest.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure he's the one that told us that.
So this guy's an animal rights legend.
Yeah, he went to prison for it, unfortunately, for years, but he's since been released and he's stayed out of trouble.
Was, without saying too much, was anyone in your circle alleged to have been involved in similar things?
Well, I mean, I'm not even comfortable talking about the fight stories as a dad. You know what I mean? It's like,
sure.
But I will say this. You know, there are reasons why people took our band seriously from here.
Beautiful.
Say no more.
Say no more. Yeah, that's a perfect answer.
Are you still mad at Josta for trying to get you the Shamrock Shake?
No, I can forgive him. Okay. I can forgive him. He's been very good to Freya and Earth Crisis over the years.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Despite making me pull weeds with his mom in his garden.
Just to see the pygmies. What is, in your experience, the worst experience you've had, somebody says, with people hating on veganism and or shreddage? Like the personal experience that sticks to you the most of just somebody not getting it.
The dead mice were a bummer because I worried that somebody got the mice from a pet store and killed them or something. You know, so that was a bummer. Well, I hope that's not the case. I hope they just got taken out of some traps in somebody's grandma's attic or something, you know?
Yeah, true.
But that was pretty rough.
Now, somebody asked, when it comes to activism, did you know you were setting a standard early?
Oh, I don't know what that means.
Like you were setting the standard of like, hey, we're the band. This is what we believe. We're out here doing it. Were there other bands around you doing the same thing?
I think that Statement and Raid and Vegan Reich had similar views, and Street Justice similar views, but they did not tour nearly to the extent that we did. They did not build the catalogs that we did. So we got known more for it.
Was influencing something that you were interested in?
Yeah, like I said, I'm trying to literally build a tribe.
That was the message.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Now, somebody said they're moving from the UK to the East Coast soon. What are some of your favorite cities and neighborhoods that are havens for vegan food?
I mean, it's everywhere now. It's so widespread. You don't even need to worry. I mean, you just happy cow your way to nirvana with vegan food.
Are you playing California anytime soon?
I think we may be out there in October with a couple other bands. We're putting something together now.
Okay, there's a place right down the street from me, Carl. It's called El Cocinero. It's a Mexican vegan place.
Oh wow!
I'm gonna take you. I might fuck your stomach up for a day, but you're gonna have some of the best stuff you've ever eaten.
And when you guys come here, doesn't matter what month it is, I want to be your tour guide in Syracuse for an episode of HauntLore because there is so many haunted spots and so many awesome legends within 45-minute drive.
Really?
Some like all within the county. Like we could do it in a day and it would be a blast.
And Carl, that of course means that you believe in ghosts, right?
I hope they're real. I think it'd be fun.
There we go. See,
not
now
for
I
them,
like that.
but for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
That's a good answer.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
You ever seen one?
No.
Not yet. Not till we come there. Somebody asked some of your best or worst memories from the dark ages of veganism.
So the peanut butter, that was the worst.
Yeah, melted peanut butter.
So what's the inverse of that? What's the like, oh, I'm so happy we're here. It's 1995.
Just try any of the restaurants in New York City at the time that had vegan stuff. They were all awesome.
Was that
like did a Boca burger bring you to tears the first time?
Not me. No, I'm not that picky.
Oh, okay. I got you. So you'd be happy with like stir-fry vegetables?
Well, no. Actually, I want to do a cookbook someday called Vegans Against Vegetables.
Okay. Wow.
But
vegans for scurvy, baby. I'll be right there with you. Let's get it.
Dude, vegan for lab processed fake meat. That's
Where do you fall on that? How do you feel about lab
in favor?
Meat?
In favor.
Because it's anything to decrease the impact on animals, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I got
Because here's the thing, man. I don't know any more about anything than Bill Nye does, you know?
Yeah.
And he's the proest GMO guy there is.
Well, let's not argue with him.
So I want my M's
O'd.
I want my O's GM, I should say.
Yes.
Okay.
What is your all-time favorite vegan dessert, and where is it from?
Oh.
Well, I mean, there's a place here called Strong Hearts, and they have awesome cupcakes and stuff. So I put them there.
Have you ever had, Carl, the milkshake from the Chicago Diner?
Oh, I've been to Chicago Diner every time we're there. It's awesome.
And how good are those fucking those
milkshakes? He kept it in business for about 8 years, I'm sure.
Probably.
Dude, I was just going to say the peanut butter cookie dough milkshake is unfucking real.
All right, I'll try it.
What is one band from the 90s that never got the recognition they deserved?
It's probably Abnegation.
Ooh.
Yeah, check them out. They're from Erie.
Abnegation.
Can't spell it.
The singer was a Tasmanian devil on stage.
Cool. I love those.
Yep.
I love those in cartoon form, so I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is a good last question. Where do you see the future of hardcore music? Sonically, thematically, lyrically? What do you want to see?
What did you guys think of Tied Down Fest? Let me ask you one question first.
I love Tied Down.
Loved it. Watched your whole set. Couldn't believe it.
Had a blast all weekend.
Yeah.
I love Jimmy and Curtis and Mike so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is what I want the future of hardcore to be.
Perfect. They're going to love
that. They're going to love that answer.
But I mean, I had a great time hanging out with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and the show was awesome. The energy was awesome. Mm-hmm. It was really well run. There was all kinds of bands. That's what it needs to be.
Beautiful.
A diverse lineup, 2,000 kids going crazy.
Yep.
No fights, no injuries. It was beautiful. Fights. It was a beautiful weekend. Yeah.
Yep. Totally agree. Great answer. Let's go out with one very important thing. Karl, what are your top 4 hardcore records of all time?
Well, you know what they are, but we'll say it. We'll say it. Chromag's Age of Quarrel, Agnostic Front One Voice, Killing Time Brightside, and Marauder Master Killer.
New York City, baby.
Thank you, Karl. Let's one more time. The Unraveling, The Council of Crows will be out in stores.
Earth Day, probably
near you.
Yeah,
this Earth Day. You are seeing the new creative endeavor.
Yeah, hold that up. Is that the
beautiful? This is the original manuscript.
See that?
And what this is a short story that I wrote years ago that I developed into a full-fledged story with my friends Jeremy and Keith. They brought all of their creativity, all their devotion and drive to it. And we would meet 2 to 3 times a week over the course of years. And we built my little story into a world that now is essentially going to be 3 books.
That little story, though, was built in your mind from a lifetime of vegan straight edge activism.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is like this fantastical story about animals dismantling the metaphorical and real machines is born out of is somehow the truest form of expression that I see here. This is the perfect kind of next chapter of the Earth Crisis story.
I think so, because this is a story that was designed for middle-aged readers. It's it has action and adventure, but there is a lot of philosophy woven into the plot and the dialogue and the discussions between the characters.
Wow.
And it, in some ways, is a very unflattering portrayal, reflection of how humans have been a very destructive force against the natural world and against the animals. But
maybe that's what we need.
Right? Yes, because more than being a condemnation, I want it to be corrective. If it's like the old saying, if you stand in somebody else's shoes, if you walk in somebody else's shoes, you'll understand them. And it's from the perspective of these beings that have been abused or exploited. And hopefully it will clarify why compassion is so important.
Wow.
And there you have it. That's a beautiful closing statement. Karl, we can't thank you enough for your time today. This was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, thank you for your music.
Oh,
my son pointed me to your bands.
Wow.
Hey, look at that.
Amazing.
And I have one question for you, Colin. Were you, when Path played in California, at that show?
Yes.
We know you
was
were
that
there.
At the Key Club or something?
Were you the guy that was fighting the 2 bouncers in the corner?
No, I was probably 14 or 15.
Okay, because it was a kid, and he got pulled out of the pit by 2 bouncers. And I remember he was in the corner, and he was swinging and swinging and swinging at both these guys that were like, 2 feet taller than him. And the bouncers were looking at each other, smiling. They're like, yeah, this kid's got it.
That might have been me. There was an incident at a murder fest that I think Earth Crisis or Path were playing.
I think it was Path and Fight Everyone, and I think it was you.
Oh, that was me, man. Damn. That's awesome.
A plastic garbage can went flying, right?
Oh, yeah. That happened all the time. But there was the singer of Fight Everyone came to my rescue. One of the singers of Fight Everyone came to my rescue at that show. And I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling this.
We don't have to put it in the thing if it gets anybody.
No, this is awesome. This is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Was he had one of the guys that was trying to rough me up. He had him by he had long hair.
Yeah.
So he had a chunk of his hair in his hand and hit him so hard that the chunk of hair remained in his hand. And the guy was on the floor while he had this giant chunk of scalp. He scalped him. He hit him so hard he scalped him. Whoa. So thank you, Zach, for that. That was nice. That's crazy, man. Do you remember that? I had no recollection of that.
Wow.
I was like, I want that guy for the tribe. We need him.
I've been in it ever since, dude. I used to mosh my underwear to Path of Resistance. That was crazy. So I've been here, man. I'm telling you.
That kid's got the fighting spirit. We need him.
I do. Thank you. I appreciate that, Karl. This was beautiful. That was a fun note to end on. You're really. I gotta do some critical thinking now. But that
tell your brother to rethink his verdict on the Earth Crisis versus Push Button Warfare.
I will. So you would say Earth Crisis?
No, but it just hurt to lose.
Doesn't it always? But thank you, Karl. This was incredible. Thank you all for listening. Mm-hmm. Earth Crisis, Freya, The Unraveling, The Council of Crows, Path of Resistance. There's so much of Karl's work out there for you to check out. So much of it that we love. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.